boards or commissions?
Probably. Eventually.
Okay, I know what you're going through. I was there with two kids.
I'm time to say no.
Well, it's hard to say no to your kids, and you know, this is how. I mean, the activities. I call.
Those are really bad.
You'll have plenty of time letting you get old like me.
We do not use that.
Just different seasons.
Oh, yeah.
You really talk to people.
So far, no one's been interested so far. I have more work to do.
Okay. If you wanna sit down and talk. Tell me for breakfast. Tell me when.
Okay, well. Oh.
Here is she.
Sure. Okay, just do that and then, okay. Thanks. And I can say and get that.
It's like chilly in here, isn't it? Yes.
Ready?
Yep, so here is.
Okay.
Oh, I gotta turn my, wait, how do I turn my music up? That's my voice, isn't it? Hmm. Okay, now, just remind me when we do that, I have to, and I won't talk. As long as I'm done. Okay.
Ready. Okay. I call the order city council meeting for the city of Petoskey for May 19th, 2025. I ask that you rise with me for the pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk Beck, would you please call roll?
Demore,
Present.
Shields.
Here.
Naktrab,
Here.
Walker is absent, Murphy.
Present. Miss Walker wanted me to say that she is at her son's graduation
Blanket ceremony.
blanket ceremony, and that's why she's not here tonight. Just she has a good excuse for doing family stuff. Next, we're going to hear a presentation from the Youth Advisory Council, and I'll turn that over to sir.
Good evening. My name is Charlie Olson, and I'm a co-chair of the PEAC. I'd like to start with a thank you for giving us the opportunity to present. We sincerely appreciate the time set aside for us. Unfortunately, some of the members are unable to be in attendance tonight due to pre-existing commitments, so they have prepared videos in the slideshow to be shown in their place. Once again, thank you, and we are eager to show you what we've accomplished this year.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brady Olson, and I am a senior at the high school. I'll be graduating soon and going to the University of Notre Dame in the fall. So my slide, if you will, switch it over to the next one, is on the PEAC process, as we call it. And so the first step in the process to craft our meetings is about a week prior to the meeting, The elected officers meet with Tina at the high school to review the meeting agenda, which has been written prior by co-chairs Taylor and Charlie. And then shortly after they've decided upon an agenda, the agenda and the minutes from the last month's meeting are shared out by those officers over email so that the members can review them prior to the meeting. We strive to be compliant with the Open Meetings Act, which means that we record minutes at each meeting that will be posted openly on our website as soon as it is finished, which you'll hear more about the website later. As far as the meetings themselves, they're led by co-chairs Taylor and Charlie. Each meeting begins with a roll call and then voting to approve the minutes of any prior meeting after the proposed edits are made. The minutes of each meeting are recorded throughout by our secretary, Bryn, who is unable to be here tonight. And then following each meeting, the process repeats. I'd like to make a note that Bryn is also a senior, and so our new secretary will be Ida, and she'll be taking over in conjunction with Bryn over the summer, and then she'll be taking over full-time next year. And we follow this procedure in order to closely mimic the procedures that other governmental units are required to follow so that we get experiential learning exactly in the shoes that all of you would have. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Charlie Olson, and I am a rising senior. The next slide should be the public parks tour. So the first tour we did for the PIAC was the public parks tour. We took a trolley and we visited a few of the parks nearby. On the tour, my eyes were open to how much work goes into the maintenance of these parks, and I was shocked to learn that the city of Petoskey has 24 parks, which is 1,260 acres of land. During the trolley ride, we visited Curtis Park. I had never been to Curtis Park before, despite living in Petoskey my entire life and frequently visiting the parks. To me, this really showed how large the public park system truly is. Also, on the trolley ride, we visited some of the more well-known parks, most notably Pennsylvania Park. On the tour, I learned a lot about the history of it, like how it used to be the Cushman Hotel. Going into the more technical aspect of things, I learned that incorporating accessibility into the parks is extremely important. One notable example that I saw on this tour was the planks and ramp at the Bayfront West Park. Lastly, on the tour, I learned about some plans for improvements to a few of the parks, like the Riverbend Skate Park and Winter Sports Park. This made me excited for the future of the parks and the public park system as a whole. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sam Ingalls. I'm an incoming senior at Petoskey High School, and I'll be talking about our Public Works deep dive. So to start off the tour, we visited the Northman Well House, where we were able to see how water quality testing is done to ensure safe drinking conditions for residents. We learned that there are 12 pumps throughout the city covering 80 total miles of water reach. Following this, we were able to go inside the water tower. And after, we learned that the city's water comes from 7 groundwater wells, each varying in depth. Our next stop was to the wastewater treatment plant, where we learned about the process in which wastewater is transported, treated, and able to be discharged into the lake, and how remaining biosolids are handled and how they're used for fertilizer and farming. Having the opportunity to learn about how the city manages water and wastewater was very influential as it was an unfamiliar subject for many of us before. It's important that we as residents know where our water is coming from, how it is handled, and where it goes after use. Seeing the consistent testing and work that is done to ensure safe water conditions was enlightening and gave us a better grasp on government procedures for water supply and waste control. Thank you.
Okay, hold on. This one's got voice. Mm-hmm. Nope. It just worked when we tested it. How come it's not working? Because I have to turn that on. Hang tight.
By the speaker there.
But it's in my voice. Let's just put it. I don't know. Like we do too. We just had it working. Feel?
I think it's in the Zoom settings, Sarah. You gotta pick the speaker in the Zoom.
No worries here, everybody's just looking at you.
I know. I do this quite often and I still don't get it right. We just tested it right before the meeting too. So maybe can we change it back to the PC? I don't know if it's up.
While she's doing that,
Yeah.
Mary Paquette, right back here in the door,
What did we do that worked?
is a
I don't understand.
photographer from Northern Michigan and was hired by Michigan Municipal League to take photographs of this process to put it into some kind of a script in the future. Just to let you know. Also in the audience is Ann Shrigley, right back here. Ann Shrigley was the mentor for the first youth council that the city had, 20 years ago. 20, I thought it was about 20. So this is Ann Shrigley. She's a long-time resident of the city of Petoskey as well.
And now serves on the review committee for the new Petoskey Youth Advisory Committee. She reviews applications with a team of people. Thank you, Ann. For a few more minutes if she can't get it. Well, what we can do is have them go to the slides that they're, that for the people that are here, if she can't get this. We'll do- Give her one more second because she's almost there. There you go. Thanks.
Start over.
See what happens.
There you go.
See? You're almost something. Sometimes. feedback. Why we get all that feedback?
We'll work on it.
Hello, everyone. I'm Taylor Keysweater, the other co-chair of the Youth Advisory Council, and I'm a junior at Petoskey High School. And today I will be talking about our visit to the Public Safety Department. Our visit began with a presentation from Police Chief Carr, who shared key statistics on annual calls, arrests, and traffic stops, as well as an overview of an officer's daily responsibilities. After, we toured areas of the Public Safety Department, including the shooting range, fire trucks, common spaces, and squad cars used in daily operation, which can be seen in the top 2 photos on the page. And the officers also engaged us in hands-on activities such as dusting for fingerprints and exploring various forensic tools. This interactive experience gave us a deeper appreciation for the skills and resources involved in keeping our community safe. And the activities can be shown in the bottom 2 pictures on this page and 2 pictures on the next slide. Next, please. Thank you. What we learned was that from touring the Public Safety Department, it gave the Youth Advisory Council valuable insight into the daily operations and responsibilities of first responders, deepening our understanding of community safety. It has helped us build stronger relationships with local officials, opening channels for collaboration on youth-focused initiatives. Going forward, the experience will enable us to contribute more effectively to discussions and decisions related to youth and community safety. It also prepares us to take on leadership roles with a clear perspective on how different city departments work together to serve the community. Thank you.
Next slide.
Hello, I'm Ariana Maldonado, a sophomore at Petoskey High School, and I'll be speaking about our conversation with Eric Hemingway, the Director of Archives and Records for the Little Traverse Bay Bands of Odawa Indians. Next slide, please. Talking to Eric Hemingway gave us an insight into the governmental institutions of the tribe here in northern Michigan and how it compares to our own. All tribal nations can use a different system of government, but the Little Traverse Bay Bands uses a system similar to the one used by the United States. They distribute power among 3 branches of government: executive, judicial, and legislative. The chair is like the head of the executive branch, similar to what the mayor does here in Petoskey. Furthermore, tribal court is the judicial branch and similar to Emmett County courts, the difference being they have different jurisdiction and tribal courts are courts of general jurisdiction. Eric Hemingway is also highlighted that the tribe has other non-formal ways to settle disputes, such as talking circles, which is a form of reconciliation but with a cultural component. Finally, tribal council is the tribe's legislative branch of government. We learned that while the tribe's government has many similarities to state governance, it has cultural aspects that make it unique. Next slide, please. Being within the historical boundaries of the Little Traverse Bay Bands, knowing the history and culture of the land is crucial to respecting it. Eric Hemingway shared with us the events that took place at the Holy Childhood Boarding School and how it still affects the Native American community today. In 1879, America created boarding schools all across the United States with the goal of, quote, killing the savage and saving the man. Millions of Native kids were forcefully removed from their homes and stripped of their cultural identities. Next slide, please. The Holy Childhood Boarding School was the last Indian boarding school in the United States to close in 1983. The boarding school negatively impacted every family in this community. The historical trauma still affects our community to this day. However, our community also is historically resilient. The bonds created by our language and culture are the growing grounds from which the next 7 generations will foster healing. Thank you.
I don't know what's going on.
There's somebody different speaking, it looks like.
Oh.
So it might be because of the way the screens are being shared.
All right. Oh, wait.
Who's talking now?
Somebody that's on joined.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Next slide. Next slide.
Okay, next slide, please. Good evening. My name is Ida Dewan. I'm a rising senior and I am homeschooled. I'm short, sorry. I will be talking about the PYAC recruitment efforts we did this year for the upcoming academic year. The recruitment process this year was primarily driven by PYAC members. Outreach went out to students at Petoskey High School, St. Michael's High School, Concord Academy, and homeschoolers. Efforts at the Petoskey High School included PYAC member volunteers handing out applications during lunch, a promotional poster that was advertised around the school, and announcements that were made during PBIS lessons and club meetings. For St. Michael's and Concord, PYAC liaison Tina Demore hand-delivered applications and additional material. For homeschoolers, an email was sent out to the Homeschool Information Network with the application and additional information attached. PYC member Luke Washington also made 2 promotional videos, one being shown at Petoskey High School and the other attached in various outreach emails to the other schools. Lastly, I wrote a press release for the Petoskey News Review that aimed to give an overview of the 2024 to 2025 PYC year in addition to seeking new applicants. Next slide, please. I think there's one before that. I think maybe you did 2. Thanks.
Nope, you went.
One before. Sorry, one before. One before. Okay, thank you. Okay, results of recruitment efforts. When the deadline had approached or had arrived this year for applications to be submitted, City Hall had received quite a good number of applications. The selection committee has recently met and have made their decisions regarding the 2025 to 2026 school year. Offers of positions will be sent out before the end of the school year. Thank you very much.
Next slide, Sarah.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Jillian Fabus. I am graduating in just a few weeks from Petoskey High School, and I will be attending Central Michigan University to begin a 5-year psych program with a minor in criminal justice and possibly leadership. My focus throughout the year has been on volunteerism, or in other words, how can we get involved in a more public way in our community and help around the city. So Petoskey Youth Advisory Council's first official appearance was at the City Council meeting held on September 16th of 2024. There we heard about the Walk to End Alzheimer's, and I wondered how we could get both Petoskey Youth Advisory Council members and other Petoskey students involved. So I got in contact with Charles Wilmot and Valerie Meyerson and was able to volunteer along with a few other YAC members and Key Club volunteers at the Walk to End Alzheimer's in the fall. Later, we revisited volunteering and how else we could get involved. So on February 16th, I contacted City Manager Horn about how we could help around the community. His response was extremely positive, and he told me that he would happily keep both Tina and me in the loop on what activities we could help in this upcoming season. At our meeting on April 14th, Parks and Recreation Director Klingel Smith discussed several opportunities for Petoskey Youth Advisory Council to volunteer at this summer. He told us about the city picnics, and we were also in contact with Chief Carr about an upcoming safety.
Public safety open.
Yes, public safety open house, yes. Which brings me to my next point, which is what we're looking forward to being at. Events discussed and that we hope to be at this summer are the Arlington Park Picnic, which is June 23rd, Curtis Park Picnic, which is July 17th, Lockwood Park Picnic, which is August 11th, the Washington Park Picnic, which is September 18th. I personally hope to be in contact with Mayor Murphy soon to discuss more about the Petoskey Youth Advisory Council helping at the Lockwood Park Picnic, or as has been referred to in the past, the Mayor's Picnic. I would finally like to note that in the upcoming events, we hope to have our shirts designed and distributed to our members, so we are easy to find and communicate with at these events and contact for help. Thank you to the council, and thank you, Tina, for a lovely year in Petoskey Youth Advisory Council. I look forward to this summer's volunteer events and seeing what the council does in the following years.
The video. slide.
And one more, please.
Thank you, all of you, for your time and the opportunity to share the work of the Petoskey Youth Advisory Council with you today. We are grateful for your continued support and look forward to updating you on our progress and success in the months to come. We are excited to continue building a strong partnership between youth and city leadership.
Thank you.
I know I speak for city council when I say thank you, Ms. Demore, for leading the way with these students, giving them opportunity, because that's what it is really all about, is giving people opportunities and letting you guys pick up the ball and run with it. And it's obvious that you guys really have. It's very impressive, and hats off. And we look forward to seeing where you go in the future, how you fly. And I'm sure some of you will hopefully fly back to Petoskey, Michigan, to possibly someday sitting up here representing the wards or the mayor's position in the future. So again, hats off to you guys for what you've done, your commitment to what you are looking at, your goal setting, and again, thank you for participating and leaving on. What's really great is you guys are looking at not just doing this, but you're also trying to make sure that this legacy that you've started is passed on to other kids to give them the opportunity. So thank you very much to all of you.
I just want to give a brief shout out to the staff. This would not have been possible without the support of staff. Everybody in this room and not in this room tonight. I see the chief back there, Sarah, city manager, Audrey, my colleague Derek, who was a driver down to CapCon. Not possible without the support of a village. So to all of you, I'm extremely grateful. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on then. Also, I got to throw in a thank you to Mr. Shields, because he chaperoned, gave up personal time, I'm sure, at work, personal time evenings, to go down and also chaperone the MML conference for you guys with Ms. Demore. So thank you, Mr. Shields, also for participating.
My pleasure.
It means a lot. Now I'm going to turn it over we're going to hear a presentation by Representative Dennis Garthland in Mergarth, Traverse City, concerning our financial statements and reports of independent certified public accountants of the annual audit, city's financial year ending December 31st, 2024. Welcome back again.
Oh, thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Trina Oakes. I'm a partner with Dennis Gartland in Neargarth, and I'm here tonight to go over the financial results for December 31st, 2024. And Sarah's going to graciously move through the presentation. So if we turn to the independent auditor's report, which is right after the table of contents, it's page 3 in the paper copy. There you go. So this starts out with our opinion. And we did find that everything was presented fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And this is over the complete financial statements of the city, which includes its component units, including the TIFA, the library, and the downtown management parking system. Under accounting changes here, the city did have to adopt a new accounting standard this year for compensated absences or accrued paid time off. That did result in an additional accrual with the adoption of that standard this year. We're going to go back a couple more pages to page 6, which is the management discussion and analysis. Like 3 more pages down. Probably 1 more below that one. There you go. So the management discussion and analysis is prepared by management of the city and is a nice summary of the financial results for the year, so that you don't have to read all 60 pages of the audited financial statements. So it talks about the governmental net position, business type activities, and component units. So really the business type activities is your electric and water and sewer system. Governmental activities is the rest of the activities of the city, and the component units are the TIFA, the library, and the downtown management parking system. So the net position of all of those together increased by $4.1 million or 4.2%. Total revenues and transfers for the year were $36 million. Total expenses were 31.8 million. If we drill down and just look at the general fund experienced an increase of $429,000. And the total fund balance at the end of the year was $6.7 million. There's some project highlights here of what the city did for the spending during the year, including the full reconstruction of the Bayview Avenue, resurfacing multiple streets, also improvements to the electric system. And we're going to go back 2 more pages to the summary of net position. Down, sorry, forward. I'm, flipping paper. One more, there you go. So the summary of net position includes the assets, liabilities, and net assets of the city. So again, it's broken down between governmental activities, business type, and then the total city here. So the total assets at the end of the year were $107.9 million. Of that, $59.9 million is in capital assets, which is buildings, equipment, vehicles, those kind of items that are not liquid. So that's $59.9 million. $47 million is in other current assets, which includes cash, investments, and receivables. There's some deferred outflows and deferred inflows. Those are components of your pension liability. The total liabilities for the year were $14 million. That's broken down between current and long-term. So the current portion is $3.9 million, which is expected to be paid out in the next calendar year. The long-term portion of about $10 million is made up of about $5.2 million in bonds payable and $4.5 million in the pension liability. And so that leaves a net position of $94.2 million. Of that, $53.7 million is investments in the capital assets. Restricted is $6.4 million, and that's restricted for streets, marina, and the refuse collection. And then the unrestricted portion is $34.1 million. Next page. The statement of changes in net position gives the revenues and expenses of the city. So the total revenues for the year were $23.8 million. That's up about 5% from 2023. Oh, I'm sorry. Total program revenues, which is charges for service, operating grants, and capital grants. So those are up 5%. General revenues, which includes the property taxes and state revenue sharing, we're at $8.7 million. Overall property taxes saw an increase of about 12% during the year, up to $6.99 million. So total revenues for the year were $32.5 million, and those are up about 6% from 2023. Moving down to the next subtotal there, total expenses were $29.6 million, and those are up about 9% from 2023. So overall, the city experienced a net increase in net position of $3.3 million. Now, Sarah, this is where we're going to go way to the very back to page 60. Yep, 61 on the PDF. I believe, yes, yay. Okay, so the budgetary comparison schedule for the general fund, just to, again, drill down and just look at the general fund. So for the year, the city budgeted $8.9 million in revenues and received actual of $8.949. So came in better than budget by $18,497. They budgeted $11.049 million for expenses and spent $10.8 million. So came in better than the budget by $223,000. So overall for the year, the general fund was budgeting a net increase in net position of $180,000, but ended the year with an increase of $429,000. So better than budget by about $247,000. The ending fund balance of the general fund was $6.7 million, and that's approximately 62% of expenses for annual basis for the city.
That's 16%, you said?
62.
60.
Yep, 62. So as a benchmark, we recommend that you don't let that fall below about 25% is the very minimum that you should have to cover cash flow. So that's about 7.5 months of expenses. That's the financial information. Is there any questions on that? Yes.
That 62%, that for the general fund balance there, that includes some of the restricted funds as well, like marina and refuse.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
that has confused me in the past. So
Oh, that is true. Yep, it does. They're recorded in the general fund. Mhm. Any other questions? Yes.
I have a question. In the current assets and current liabilities,
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty strong. Assets to liabilities, current assets, current liabilities. I call it the current ratio, but can you tell me if that is unusually high for cities that you audit? Or is that normal? Is that low?
It's, we would look more generally at the net position rather than current assets to current liabilities, but the net position, I would say, is very strong.
Very strong.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, crazy strong. Would you
Well-
say that's in cities that you do? Is that,
It's not the highest we have.
is it in the top?
It's near the top, yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Nope. There is, well,
I'll just on this aspect.
I was going to go through the letter, or
Okay.
if that's okay. So we have the separate audit-related communication letter, which that's down below. I don't know how many pages you'd have to go down, but farther down. Keep going. It'll be highlighted. There you go. So this is our letter that we issue at the completion of the audit, and it's to those charged with governance. So you'll hear us talk about the same things every year. It's the items we're required to communicate. So the first page talks about internal controls, and that's really the policies and procedures of the city. We do have to look at those as we're designing our audit tests. We did have one item that we mentioned on page 2, which is the preparation of the financial statements. And that is that under current auditing standards, it requires the management of the city to prepare the entire audited financial statement along with all the disclosures. In reality, we do it for every single client that we audit. So this is letting you know that we do provide that service for you. It is reviewed and approved. And so in that case, we're still independent to issue an opinion on the financial statements.
You give us that report every year though, haven't you not?
Yes, yeah, that's a recurring thing
Yeah.
that we do typically see in smaller entities. Yes.
Not to be a smart aleck, but I do get a kick out of this because every year it's basically that by hiring you, we
I
have
know.
a deficiency. Fair?
Yes.
Doesn't seem right. Thank
I
you.
know. It's just, it's not reality. Again, in reality, most governments especially are not going to have a CPA on staff that keeps up with all these auditing standards and prepares financial statements on an annual basis. So you're meeting your internal reporting, you're reporting on your funds on a monthly basis. This is a once a year, basically, kind of report. Budget amendments, we did note that the general fund did have some individual departments that were over budget, but in general, the fund itself was under budget. So we are required to report those over budget items in the audit report and also to the state of Michigan. Under qualitative aspects of accounting practices, it talks about the accounting policies in Note A to the financial statements and the new compensated absences policy that was adopted this year. We found that everything was presented in the proper period. There was nothing where there wasn't guidance on how to account for it. Accounting estimates on the bottom of the page there, we mentioned the net pension liability, and that's based on information that MERS provides to the city. And then depreciation of capital assets, which is based on your useful life schedule.
Do you have the numbers on where we're at with that?
MERS, I do. Yes, it's in the report. Back.
I think 52 and 50.
I was going to say 62. 62 is a 10-year comparison schedule. So you're currently 88% funded. The net pension liability is $4.5 million, and that's down from last year's $5 million. And if you go back a couple more pages to page 64, it shows what the MERS required contribution was and the contributions that the city made. And you can see for several years running that the city has been making additional contributions to try to push down that net liability.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And we can go to the next page. As far as estimates in the financial statements, well, the estimates are on the prior page. We did look at how those were calculated and found that they were reasonable. As far as significant disclosures, we mentioned the investment risk disclosures, pension disclosures, and commitments and contingencies. We had no difficulties encountered in performing the audits. On the bottom of the page are some audit adjustments that we posted in the course of the audit. And on the top of page 4, we say as a matter of convenience, we posted these other adjustments, which were to convert primarily your component units and your proprietary funds to full accrual basis, but new accounting standards that have come up for the last several years. So we're recording your GASB 87 lease liabilities, your GASB 68 pension liability. Those are items we are adjusting on an annual basis. There was no disagreements with management and no consultations with other accountants. And then on the top of page 5 is more accounting standards that are coming out in the future years. The first is the single audit or the federal grant audit. So the city did receive ARPA funding. This is letting you know that the limit for when you have to have a federal grant audit is increasing to spending of $1 million in any calendar year. So if the city was to spend $1 million of ARPA funding in any one year, you would have to have a single audit or a grant audit as well. Risk disclosures talks about concentrations and constraints, and that if those come up and could have a substantial impact, they should be disclosed. The most common thing I'm seeing right now, particularly with governments, maybe not cities, is federal funding that's being discontinued, and they are having to look at other funding streams because the federal funding has been discontinued. The financial reporting model improvements talks about various disclosures that are changing, including the management's discussion and analysis. They're adding more to it. Budgetary comparison schedules will look different. That's not effective until the year ended 12/31/26. And then on page 6, disclosure of certain capital assets. This is talking about assets under leases, so assets that are owned by the city but are leased to other entities, and technology-based assets, and basically accounting for those assets. And that is effective also in 2026. And then finally, under other matters, there's additional information in the audit report, including the management discussion and analysis, budget to actual schedules, the pension funding schedules, and the combining non-major fund schedules. And all of that information was agreed to the city's records and found to be reasonable as well.
Council, do you have any questions?
I do. I'll have just a couple.
Go ahead, Mr.
Can you tell me how many cities or governmental agencies you audit that you're overseeing and your firm oversees? I mean, 1 or 2 or 50?
No, not, well, probably, I don't know, between 20 and 50.
Do you keep a database of key financial data that can be shared that we can, sort of like more for benchmarking with your clients for?
No, we haven't. No.
You should. Because I think it's
Yeah.
benchmarking of your own, if you're an expert in that, it would seem like that would be good information to kind of show. And you mentioned before that, we don't have the financial statements that we would normally prepare, and we were over budget, went over budget on some things. And so I'm a little sensitive to the financial reporting. And then you mentioned that it's not unusual to have a CPA on staff in a city to do things. So would you say compared that we're kind of normal?
Yes.
Flatly normal?
So I had said it is unusual to have a CPA on staff.
And would when we present you the numbers, when Audra presents you a trial balance or whatever term it is used for all the funds.
Mm-hmm.
Did you find yourself having to do a lot of entries to fix things?
No, I mean, most of them were related to the newer
The new
standards that,
standard. And my last
right.
question is, were you over or under budget on the time that you spent for this?
we were
audit?
over budget.
And what was the primary reason for that?
Some questions about investments and making sure that those were classified correctly was a bigger portion of it. There was some adjustments to fixed assets this year, which was related to an item was reported as governmental and it was actually paid for by the TIFA funds who were moving some stuff around that way, but nothing
Okay,
significant.
thank you. Thank you.
Hmm.
What percent were you over budget?
I don't know. I'd have to look. Yeah.
Mr. Moore.
Just circling back a minute to the budget amendments.
Hmm.
So what is your specific recommendation relative to how that should be done, as opposed to how it was done?
So the city of, the cities in general are required by the state of Michigan to budget by department in your general fund. And so the budget to actual statement does show those individual departments. And you have to basically predict what your invoices will be coming in after the end of the year and make sure that you're trying to know what that is and make budget amendments before the end of the year. So it really comes into some of that predicting category where we might find more payables after the end of the year that you weren't anticipating. And so once we record those, you're over budget. So basically just making budget amendments and making sure you have enough in your budget to cover the expenses that will be coming in.
Sure, maybe I didn't phrase my question properly, but relative to process,
Mhm.
would those be then coming back to council when that changes in that way?
Yes, budget amendments are required to be approved before the end of the year by the council.
Okay.
And we do that in December.
Mhm.
We do the budget amendments. So there were four things that I missed, if you want me to speak on those.
Please.
The four budget amendments. So the first one, that was staff fault. Fringe, our new health insurance provider. Oh, I'm sorry. Our health insurance provider, we switched companies this year and their bill came out in January. Or it was for the month of January. It was paid in January, but it should have been booked to the prior year. It was booked to January. So that was the first reclassification and that was not included in budget amendments because it was supposed to be accounted for. So that was missed. The second one, we paid the debt off for the Marina Bond Fund. And so the second one is just closing out the fund, just in a journal entry to close out the fund for the audit. The third one, it was a payment received February 28th for our Marina Ferry bill for the sales that that the city made for that, the revenue. And so I wasn't sure when that was gonna come in or how much that was gonna be. So that was not booked back as a due to or receivable for 2024. And it was after it was the 28th, I think, when the check came in, and that was right when we were sending the trial balance out. So once we send the trial balance out, anything you find has to be recorded.
Mhm.
And so, so that was just booked back for 14,000. And then the adjustment of state grant unearned revenue to the general fund of 21,000. That's in regards to the zoning grant.
Yeah.
And we had spent at that point in time 21,000. That's how much we had expended on the grant for the zoning, but had not received payment for within the 60 days after year end. So then that is reclassified. So those are the four journal entries or budget amendments. And when the budget amendments are prepared, I ask all of staff, we call vendors that might be large vendors, to try to estimate their last month or last quarter's bills, as well as, just trying to predict any unknown expenses.
Well, I just want to thank you for being
Sure.
forthright about being a learner. I think it's really important that, all these young people sitting in the audience will talk about how many times I've made mistakes and talked
Mhm.
about it. You know, I'm not saying you made a mistake, but just
Right.
being a learner at all times and then being forthright about it. I really
Oh,
admire that.
you're welcome.
So
Yeah,
thank you.
every year it's just a guessing. You're hoping that you,
These were not mistakes, these were
No,
just.
no, no.
ballpark
No,
estimates.
Things that you didn't know
Just in the
about.
Process of government. So,
I was
Mhm.
talking about my
Audrey, you
mistake.
made no mistake.
Any organization has this.
Mhm. All right, any other questions?
Yeah, what else? Thank you very much. for
Thank you.
travel, big back to Travis.
Thank
got some
you.
sunlight.
Yeah, and I will just say, I was an intern at City Hall in high school, and now I audit. This is my career, so you can learn a lot in high school.
Take note. You could be traveling like she is and counting numbers all the time.
thank you very much. Safe travels.
Okay. Next is the consent agenda. It's the adoption of a proposed resolution that would confirm approval of the following. The May 5th, 2025 regular session city council meeting minutes, as well as acknowledge the receipt of certain transactions that have occurred administratively since May 5th, 2025. It'll also in this consent agenda is included is the April 2025 revenue and expenditure report to city council from staff. Council, do you have any questions, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Moore.
I just had one typo that I've already given to Sarah, and that was the spelling of Mr. McLean's name. He offered a comment. It's under council comments, and she has the corrected spelling. So with that, I'm happy to make a motion.
I had a question.
Make the motion, second it, and then we'll.
Okay, so I'll second the motion.
I have a motion from Mr. Moore, a second from Mr. Knobtrop. Now, questions or comments? Mr. Knobtrop.
The question I have is on the financials that we get. And I mentioned this to the Shane earlier today. I want to get clarification. These numbers that we have, the first column shows 25 actual, then it says 25 budget, and then the variance. I'm assuming, I'd like to get clarification on this. I'm assuming the budget column in all of these are an annual budget number. And we're comparing the annual budget to just the month of it's just the month, whether it's the balance sheet or the revenue and expenses. Is that correct?
It is month to date.
Month to date.
Okay, so
So at the top, it's as of 4/30.
So
April
on the
30th.
income statement, it's a year-to-date compared to a year-to-date budget, or it's a year-to-date actual compared to an annual budget?
Year to date compared to annual budget.
Okay, so
And then the percentage of plus or minus.
variant, so,
Yeah.
so to me, I don't think it makes, it doesn't really give us council a whole lot of information because you're comparing a year-to-date number, which would, depending on how many months in the year, to an annual budget that we can't really tell. It might be normal. And in my world, the year over year is one heck of a lot better analysis than comparing a year-to-date in the month to an annual budget. It's almost useless to me to see, are we doing our job of monitoring the budget? I don't know if you guys are following me or not.
Well, all the staff, all the supervisors and directors, they are the ones monitoring the budget. In the budget, this time of year, you know, through April, there's not much going on. It becomes much more useful as projects are starting, monies are expended, especially after July. Once the tax revenue comes in, then everything lines up a lot nicer. If you compare, you're asking if it would be more useful to have last year's actual to date?
Yes, because to me as a council member, we're supposed to be kind of monitoring this. And I don't see how it really helps us to figure out, do we have any problems or not? What's the trends? And in my world, it should be a year over year comparison. How much did we spend last year for this line item, as well as the budget? The budget column is good, but a year over year, to me, it gives the gives us the ability to kind of see how things are going. If we
Mhm.
spent $1 million last year in a line item, and now this year, we're not over budget yet, but we got $1.4 million, well, that might say, well, why are we so much over from last year? And you'd have an explanation for it.
But we would be discussing that when we approve the budget in the fall, correct?
On a month, if you're giving, what I guess, John, what I'm trying to say is, what is the purpose of this?
That's
Statements.
That's simply just a communication to council on this is how the budget is progressing. It kind of gives you a snapshot. Certainly, we can take your feedback. We can do a lot of different reporting out. I wanted to try to keep this fairly kind of a bird's eye overview versus getting into the weeds. But if you want to give that feedback and provide that feedback, we can give you any sort of data that you would like. But typically during the budget process, you're going to see all of those.
No, I get that. And, you know, and I am a geek with numbers, and I don't consider what I'm saying in the weeds, John, or Shane. I don't. I'm just saying, if you have a duty, if we as council have a duty to kind of look and see how the expenses are going, and I don't want to dwell on this, but it's not very, I don't see how you can actually look at this and get a lot of conclusions on how we're doing this year versus last year versus the budget. That's all, but.
Mr. Moore.
I think I'd have to understand more what you're looking for, because I think like a business comparison, I understand in that context. But here, I feel like so many things change from year to year. Like if we're doing a project that didn't happen last year, you know what I'm saying? Those numbers compared to last year might look like red lights flashing when in fact it's just a big project in that category. So I'm not saying no to what you're saying. I guess I just have to understand more how that would work in this context.
I think what I'm talking about is irrelevant to government versus business. It's all the same. Trying to get the definition of an accounting system is to provide meaningful data so that management can make decisions.
Right.
And year over year comparisons and projects, and you're right, I hear what you're saying, but I don't want to dwell on, I'm not trying to take up any time.
Let's
but it's-
go with the motor pool. It varies from year to year greatly. And in
Mhm.
February,
streets.
we may spend $200,000 out of it, when last year we spent nothing. And maybe we did the purchases in what, June or July? I
But
mean,
those would be questions you don't know without seeing the numbers, and for me, that you'd want to ask it. If they're on a year to date. So that's okay.
No, I think it's important for us to, I'll sit down with you and you can educate me more on this, because I'm having some I have some understanding where you're coming from, but I have some I don't understand.
Okay.
You know, my thing is when we approve the budget in fall, that we need to know that we have stayed within that budget, or they have come back with a amendment and tell me why you changed the budget from what we approved in November before. Ms. Demore.
Yeah, and I would only follow up to say that's how I use this. Like I kind of am following this to see where are we relative to what we've allocated. That's what I look at it for.
But, Mr. Shields.
Yeah, just add that I've used it as a temperature check compared to where we'll be going. And if there's a possible flag to discuss something, if there was something that rose a flag to me, but I also would love to learn more as well. So.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments? I go to Ms. Beck for roll. That's motion was made by Ms. Demore and seconded by Mr. Knobtrop.
Demore,
Aye.
Knoptrop,
Aye.
Shields,
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. Motion passes for this consent agenda 4-0. Next is public comment. That is your opportunity to step forward to the mic. It's on. If it's off, turn it green. You give us your full name, full address, and you'll have time to speak to council. You'll be speaking to council directly, not to the audience. Does anybody wish to speak to council at this time?
There's someone online.
There is? Okay. Who is it?
Louis Valance. Oh, hold on.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. My name is Louis Valance. I'm calling, a resident of Sheboygan. I am spearheading an effort to get Amtrak service to Northern Michigan. And I am in front of you today, emailed the mayor a email with the proposed resolution to support Amtrak service to Northern Michigan. What it would do is it would have a train extending up from Grand Rapids, utilizing the abandoned rail lines that are now trails. It would revert back from the Department of Natural Resources to the Department of Transportation to be used for rails for trails. And the service would go all the way up to Mackinac City. There would also be service to in Emma County to Petoskey, obviously, Lansing, Pellston, and Mackinac City. So what I am asking is for the city of Petoskey to either do a resolution or a letter of support bringing Amtrak service to Northern Michigan, because Northern Michigan residents do not have equal access to the transportation network. And the intercity provider that we have currently, Indian Trails, is not servicing Northern Michigan properly. So I spoke with Amtrak, and they are in full support of bringing the extension of the Pierre Marquette and as well as the Blue Water service out of East Lansing and Flint north to Mackinac City. So there would be 3 trains in Mackinac City. So just looking for a letter of support and or a resolution from the city of Petoskey, because Petoskey is one of the top tourist destinations in the state and quite frankly in the country. And it would be beneficial for its community and quite frankly for the entire Northern Michigan community. So I'd like to see if we can get a letter of support and or a resolution from the city of Petoskey. And one comment to council member Shields, we can talk offline. I have some information about the property over in Sheboygan that I need to discuss with you. Anyway, thank you very much, and look forward to seeing a resolution and or a letter of support for Amtrak service to Northern Michigan. Thank you.
Council, are you interested in entertaining a resolution or proclamation or support on this? Mr. Shields.
Thanks, Mayor. I would direct Mr. Valance to Groundworks, Center for Groundworks. It's a nonprofit based out of Traverse City who is attempting to spearhead this event. If you've not been in touch with them, I encourage you to do this. So, if something came through a entity like Groundworks, potentially, Mayor, and Mr. Valance, we'll follow up. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to council at this time? There being none, I'll go over now to City Manager Horn's City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple highlights to touch on this evening. This week, tomorrow night, we have our Downtown Management Board that meets in the community room. That's Tuesday, the 20th of May at 6 o'clock. Also have the Planning Commission meeting in the same room, the community room, on Wednesday. That's May 21st, also at 6 o'clock this week. Wanted to continue to let residents know about our weekly rubbish collection program for 25. We went through our first week last week collecting curbside. We will continue that starting tomorrow. This would be properties west of Howard Street, followed by Wednesday of this week, May 21st, properties on the east side of Howard Street. Again, folks can set materials out to the curb for collection. This is a great opportunity to do some spring cleaning in and around your property, your garage, and I would direct people to our website to see what items are accepted and what items would not be accepted and what items would need to be recycled. I would just highlight the first round I noticed, and we've tagged a number of mattresses. We do not pick up mattresses curbside during this time. Those items need to be recycled and can be dropped off at the collection center from Emmett County. Wanted to highlight again, spring construction projects. As you know, we're going 100 miles an hour, trying to get our community cleaned up, ready for our visitors. So a lot of our projects are moving along very well. Howard Street, this would be from State to Grove. We have opened the intersection up. We did that Friday. It's open with gravel currently. We did get quite a bit of rain that we had to kind of go back and kind of clean that up a little bit. And we'll have to continue to do that until asphalt is placed. But all utility work has been completed in the intersection. All concrete sidewalk, curb and gutter in the intersection has been complete. We've topsoil has been placed in the green area, green spaces. And again, the intersection opened last Friday. We are proceeding up to Grove Street. So we are hoping to kind of pave all that at one time here in the next few weeks. So we'll keep you updated on how that progresses. But State Street is open. Grove Street, that intersection is closed, Grove and Howard currently. Pennsylvania Park, this is a couple phase projects. So phase one would be from East Lake to essentially where the chamber is located. All storm sewer under drain is complete. Light pole bases have been installed. Concrete work has completed. Irrigation and light poles are being installed. Tree installation and sod work will be installed once phase two is complete. We'll do all that work in at one time. Phase two of that project would be from Bay to East Lake. All concrete has been removed in that stretch. Storm sewer and under drains are completed. Electrical conduit and light pole bases are installed. We are prepping for concrete today. Form work will happen later this week, and then we're gonna hold off on pouring concrete until after Labor Day. I'm sorry, after Memorial Day. Don't wanna rush summer too much here. Bayfront Arboretum Trail, if you've not been up there, that concrete work has been completed. Much of the topsoil has been graded and ready for raking and final restoration. We do expect the hydro seeding to begin this week. And then paving, the well house drive will be paved later this week as well. But the trail will be open before the end of the week. So we'll take the barricades down. Folks will be able to utilize the trail. Obviously, we will be watching the grass grow for the next few weeks, hopefully up there. Seville parking lot reconstruction. So final paving has been completed. All concrete flat work and curb and gutter within the lot has been completed. Striping, the parking lot signage and striping will take place this week. Irrigation work this week. Final restoration and landscaping will begin after Labor Day. We will, I did it again, Memorial Day. We will open the lot before the weekend. We will not have our pay stations in place. This will be essentially a freebie this weekend until our pay stations are in place. But we felt like we needed to get that lot open for the holiday weekend. Other capital improvement projects that we have been working on, the tunnel concrete restoration. So we've chipped out the bad sections of the tunnel that we've that have been kind of delaminated, where the concrete has fallen and just kind of fallen into the tunnel itself. We've chipped out all the bad. We're ready now to put new concrete back in place. So that'll happen this week. Historical Society, we had a project to repair the cedar columns that are around the perimeter of the Historic Society Museum. That work has been completed. We did complete the chamber windows this week. We did a lot of sanding actually today still, so the windows need to be cleaned, but what started out as one pane we thought was the issue. We had significant rot going on with the wood in the sill area, so we essentially had to replace all the windows with all new trim. So that was a nice project to get done. Now we just need to clean the windows and clean up a little bit from drywall dust. Public safety, we had a couple of things there as well. The radiant tube heaters this is the East Lake Street station. The radiant tube heaters in the main garage were replaced. Also at the East Lake Street Station, we had an HVAC unit that was replaced that dated back to the mid-80s as well. So 2 nice projects there as well. So we've had staff has been working pretty diligently to try to get our community kind of cleaned up. Obviously, Howard Street will be an all summer project, but other than that, we hope the other projects will be in great shape by the time our visitors arrive in a few weeks. So any questions for me?
Council. Mr. Shields.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Manager Horn. Do we want to, we haven't talked about work sessions in a while.
Yeah.
Just wanted to bring that up. Is that something that we could look to schedule this summer?
Yeah, I'm a fan of work sessions. I've mentioned that several times, whether that's on a regular basis or as needed, but anytime council has the availability of time, I think we have a number of things we could certainly discuss, and it'd be helpful for me, helpful for staff to kind of get additional direction. So I know summers can be very busy, but certainly we're willing and ready to have and schedule those whenever it suits council.
Great. So,
You want to know about, yeah, let's.
well, yeah.
do a second with that.
If,
I think we should identify for scheduling a work session. I think we should schedule what is going to be discussed at the work session so that it isn't a free for all and we don't end up with a goal in mind for an end piece. So.
Yeah, I can send out a list of topics that I know we've talked about before. We just need further clarity, further discussion to kind of vet those out a little bit. I have a pretty good list of things, and then council, you can add to that list. And
how about if he sends it out to us? We circle the top 3 or something along that line, mark the top, give priorities of what you have, the 1, 2, and 3, and he can then, and if there's something else that's not there, list it on the bottom and send it back, and he can accumulate that and bring it back to council for a movement of it. Mr. Knobloch.
Mayor, what is a work session? Being ignorant here.
so a work session is just a discussion where you're not voting on anything. It's for items that could be coming before you in the future. So you kind of have, whether we could bring in staff to kind of give a presentation on an issue or a concern, or staff or city council as well. It's just a lower key discussion without having the expectation of a vote right afterwards. It's just, let's talk about it first. Let's lay out some groundwork, and maybe some additional due diligence, and then we'll schedule that on one of your agendas, in the future. So that's kind of what that is. In some communities, it's done before the regular meeting. For instance, you could have a work session that starts at 5, your work session is 5 to 6, and then your regular meeting starts at 6. Some do, some do like this. We meet the first and third. We could have a work session on the second or fourth Monday. So whenever council wants to do that, we'd certainly love to schedule some additional time, because I think we have a number of things kind of percolating out there that we need to kind of flesh out a little bit.
Could you name 1 or 2 so since Joe is new at this, it gives him an idea of like what kind of topics we've had in the past?
Vacant building ordinances, blight ordinances, deer culling,
Good idea.
millage, public, Parks and Rec updates.
Is it open to the public or?
Yeah, these are
Oh,
public
yeah.
meetings.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
these are public meeting. Everything we do is a public meeting, so.
Sit around and, yeah, have a discussion, more round table than sitting up here. Okay? So, city manager
Yeah,
send
I'll
that
send
to
out I'll
council?
send out a working kind of list and,
Yeah, and they can pick and choose
Yeah.
what they like, and also if you see there's something that's missing that you go, boy, they missed the boat on this one, we need to talk about the yacht coming into Petoskey or the cruise ship coming into Petoskey or something like that, okay?
you know, one, I'll just throw this out there, because we don't have our second meeting in June because of the convention. Well, you're not gonna be here though, will you? Okay. I was thinking maybe you could do like the 23rd or the 30th. Because we wouldn't have our second meeting in June, but if we're not all here, that's, we would want to have everybody here, so. Okay.
The more.
I just want to put on the radar too, that during the school year, the second Monday would never work because that's when the YAC meets. So just for the record,
That's in the school year.
yeah, not the summer.
We're probably talking summer meetings at this point, right? Probably. Derek, you want, you like to get going this summer, right?
Yes.
Not wait till fall. Okay. I'm all in on that. Okay. Anything else? Let's move to considerations of appointments. Board of Review, I'm bringing forward Joel Wooster. He's the chair of the board. He has interest in continuing. If appointed, he would attend and participate in board meetings as well as training sessions. Done a great job. I know Mr. Knobtrop, you've served with him on that board prior to here. So,
Make a motion to approve the reappointment of Mr. Worcester.
I second that.
I have a motion from Mr. Shields and a second from Mr. Knobtrop. Any other discussion? I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Shields,
Yes.
Knoptrop,
Aye.
Demore,
Aye.
Murphy.
Yes, motion passes 4-0. Thank you again for serving Joel Wooster. He is a attorney in town. I think he does a great job. I sat in on one meeting and I was impressed by his leadership. We would greatly miss him. Next is George Robson. It's for the Tax Increment Finance Board, TIF. They are meeting here short order in the next. I bring his name forward to you. He has served in the past. Active in the community. He's out and about a lot, so.
So moved.
I second the motion.
I have a motion from Mr. Moore, a second from Mr. Shields. Any other discussion? Questions? I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Demore,
Aye.
Shields.
Yes.
Knoptrop,
Aye.
Murphy.
Yes. Congratulations also to George Robson for volunteering to serve. And our thank you. Next is the old business, and it's the second read and possible adoption of the proposed ordinance amending chapter 18, streets and sidewalks and other public places to regulate camping in public places. I'm going to send it over to our city manager to start the discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. This is kind of an additional ongoing discussion that we've had about, and this has really been complaint driven, where we've had camping showing up along the bayfront, whether it's conversion vans or where folks just kind of occupying multiple spaces along the bayfront. What that does is obviously put strain on resources. It occupies prime spots for others to enjoy as well. We didn't feel like we had strong language in our current ordinance to really address that efficiently. So we've asked our city attorney to draft this ordinance that we've talked about. We talked about it last meeting. We did have the city attorney go back and make a few amendments, removing the phrase overnight, removing the definition of overnight in section 18.6. Some discussion was, well, what happens in those hours between outside of the 11 PM to, I think it was 7 AM. So we just decided for clarity's sake, let's eliminate the overnight phrase, eliminate the definition, and essentially move forward with just camping in public places, regulating camping in public places. So again, this has really been complaint driven, whether it's the Bayfront or we've had a number of complaints along the Bear River Valley as well, where people try to enjoy that public space and run into other folks that are occupying space that may, whether it's a tent showing up or occupying the shelter at all hours of the day and night. So this has been an ongoing concern. We're trying to have an ordinance in place that allows us to address these items and do so in a way that is respectful, not overbearing. That's not how we operate. We try to find resources for folks. We're not trying to be heavy-handed in any way with what we're trying to accomplish here. We're just trying to address some ongoing complaints that we've had, whether again, be at the Bayfront or in our public spaces. Director Carr is with us this evening as well. He can talk a little bit about process and what his officers do when they run into these situations, and how we've tried to be more of a resource, passing out information to folks, trying to get them access to resources. As we all know, sometimes that's received well. Other times there's just not a desire to take advantage of community resources. So we try to, every situation is unique. There's not a boilerplate that we use to address things as they arise. This ordinance, we believe, would assist us in putting up some signage, alerting people that camping in these public spaces is not allowed. It would allow public safety again to enforce that more effectively than we can currently. So any questions for myself? Again, Director Carr is available to, again, provide additional background on his department.
Question, Mr. Knobtop.
Yes, I got a call today from someone in Ward 3 who witnessed some pretty rough things this morning in Bear River, and she couldn't be here tonight, but she wanted me to make sure I voiced her concerns about, and she thought the whole thing was just camping in Bear River. She didn't fully understand what we were doing. So my question is, and she walks around a lot. She walks in Bear River. It's a beautiful spot. It's buried. It's very low visibility. My question is, in the definition of camping, when we implement this, if we've just got some people that are at, the Nehemiah House, or, the different, and they have to leave for 30 days and they're basically kind of floating around and they're just sleeping on, in this case, the tables in the pavilion at Bear River, is that the same thing as camping? And we would remove them? Is that your kind of understanding?
I'm gonna let Director Carr maybe chime in on that.
Good evening, everyone. To answer your question, I guess it depends on the reason why we were called to those locations, but yes, that would be considered camping. The ordinance basically says with or without shelter. And in many of those cases, if somebody is staying in those areas, we try and find them resources. In this case that you're speaking of, that's still ongoing. But once again, this is not to get into the weeds of things, but yes, those things happen. That's why we're here. It wasn't, you can look back to last year where a juvenile was assaulted down there. These concerns come to us, and at that time we were, evident online that we weren't doing enough. At least that's what the public was stating. So this is kind of why we have brought these issues to you to try and see if we can have, some way, another way of trying to handle these things.
From a safety standpoint, particularly Bear River, I think is so, the visibility is not good. You know, you can't just drive
Agreed.
by it. You got to be in there and get down in there and patrolling it. And that's kind of a dangerous things for
Right.
people.
And we have staff, we have our Parks and Rec staff that won't go down there by themselves to empty the trash anymore because they're verbally assaulted and numerous complaints of people saying, hey, we'd like to take our family down there and have a picnic. Yet there's music blaring and there's, you know, it's overcome in these areas. And these are recreational areas that we're, you know, we don't want to have that reputation. So we're just trying to be able to provide those resources to people so they, you know, have a place to go. And those who want to get out of those situations will utilize the resources that we provide.
Thank you.
Mr. Moore.
So Chief Carr, understanding that every situation is going to be different, if maybe you could just give an overview, you know, in the event that you might encounter an unhoused person, you know, do you have a list of resources that you're continuing updating? How, just
We
a
do.
general overview.
Yes, we have a list of resources that actually are in the front of the building here. Also, as you walk in, there's pamphlets available when the city hall is open that has a list of resources. We have a list of resources in all the vehicles, and they're currently being updated. I believe the one I sent you last had some of the times wrong on the food kitchens. So that has been updated since. I was also just provided some more resources by Councilwoman Walker that we do have, some of them are duplicates. However, there are some that we could add to ours. And we added some earlier this week. The 211 was already added. So, and I guess to kind of walk you through a situation like that, sometimes they call. It's getting cold out and, you know, they're in trouble and they need some help, and we would go down that list ourselves. And sometimes we make the phone calls and we try and find placement. And then we provide them resources, and it has not only just places to stay, it has the food pantries, and also has mental health contacts and substance abuse places to get treatment. So it's kind of a slew of things that we provide.
Mental health only has 347. Is that a 24-hour answering?
I don't believe that is 24. I think that's business hours.
Maybe we should look at.
I mean, I believe the crisis hotline
Right.
is 24/7.
And is that? I don't see that listed. It has substance abuse, Harbor Hall and Bear River Health, but.
I know we've awakened some people at hours to trying to get people
Just a
some help as
suggestion
well.
for
So
because I know mental illness is a common thread that I'm sure you see when you're dealing with this mental illness, and perhaps making sure we have some numbers for 24/7 mental illness contact.
right, and sometimes too, it's people want to be checked out, then we just take them to the hospital, and then they are assessed there medically.
Great. Other questions, Mr. Shields?
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Director Carr. I appreciate the respectful approach and the very valid reasons why you're looking for some direction and bringing this ordinance to us. When you talk with people and you try to find them resources, do you have any sense of how successful some of those resources are, or how often people are finding and connecting to these resources?
No, I mean, my only gauge is how many times do I see the report come across or their name come across my desk? And a lot of times it's reoccurring. So once again, we can't govern free will, basically. If they choose to live a lifestyle that they're accustomed to, and once again, we talked about substance abuse and mental health, we can't force people to, you know, down a path that we're choosing for them. There has to be some type of commitment on their side to want to get out of the situation that they're in.
Do you, as your department, have a list of names? Do we know the homeless individuals by name?
No, because the ones who are homeless and want to utilize our resources, we don't see them very often. And some of the people that we deal with aren't actually homeless. They've utilized these resources, but don't like to follow the rules that these resources have laid out for them. So they'll find weekends where there's good weather and they don't utilize the resource through that weekend. And that's when we find instances just as today that occur in the river valley.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Any other questions? It's the second reading, it's a possible adoption of this proposed resolution. In talking with Councilman Walker, he had concerns about there's minimal changes that happened between the first reading and the second reading. City manager Horn contacted the city attorney and felt that there were minimal changes to it and that we could proceed forward with this motion if we wish to. Well, this motion is not going to give all of the answers. I think it does give public safety the tools that they need to enforce things and a better foot in being able to say, you need to move on. You can't stay here. This is not where you can't camp here. And right now we have we have nothing on camping, on camping. And so overnight, daytime. And I think this will give us some tools. Are there areas that we need to address? Yes, we need to address more on the homeless situation. And I'm talking of homeless people. I'm not talking of people that come up here and decide to just stay in a van down in the waterfront overnight. Those aren't the people we're talking about right here on this. We're talking about taking care of not allowing camping to go on. And we can talk about the other stuff, fine, but I believe it's a blanket cover right now, and we can come back with other options to increase this thing, to establish other processes that would take place. But I believe this is something that needs to happen now rather than later. Mr. Knobtrop.
I have a process question. Do you have to read it again, or are you looking for a motion and then talk about it?
We can have a motion.
I'd make that motion to accept it.
Support.
Okay. I would have more discussion if you wish. Oh, the public comment will come after the discussion by council. Council will discuss first. Mr. Knobtrop.
I sense a fair amount of concern about the lack of resources for the unhoused people in Petoskey. And I really understand and appreciate that. I really, really do. Where I come, and especially after listening to Amy today, I mean, she was frightened and she was exposed to things that she shouldn't have been exposed to. And I think we have from a public safety standpoint, have a primary duty for the people that it's hurting. And I understand the sensitivity of the, I'm going to call them the unhoused folks and all the issues that we have, but I come down strongly on that we got to protect the rest of the people first from public safety. And I think that's a heck of a lot more important right now in this ordinance. And that's why I pretty strongly support it.
Mr. Shields.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Mr. Knobtrop. I will not be supporting this. I feel like it is a tool for the immediate situation, and it is an important tool, and I hope it will be passed at some point. This is not the point. I think it's too premature. I think that, yeah, it's a very valid concern about someone's perception of fear and safety in a public space. But we're also talking about a persistent problem, reoccurring problem, as Chief Carr mentioned. We're talking about people who do not have a home and do not have a place to sleep. So that's a very pertinent and a real thing to put on the table here. So I think that this is a part of the solution, but it is not the whole solution. And I feel like to do it now will weaken or potentially water future solutions. And this is an opportunity to take time, have some discomfort in it while we're working on a bigger picture. I know in Traverse City, our neighboring community, that situation got real out of hand there. But one thing that community has done is Chief Richmond in Traverse City, in quote, said, "We've tried to do everything we possibly could, lots of outreach for the last year and a half or more." They know every homeless person by name. They have the resources to have someone that's a point person to know those people. They have someone that's working and say, if someone is booted out of a tent community, that they know there's a bed for them someplace. So this is something that's beyond the capacity of just our public safety and staff alone. It is something that is a coalition, and there's a housing and homeless task force in Traverse City. So it's a heavy ask, and it's kind of very aspirational, but I want to push us towards that. I think we can do what seems not attainable. But I think passing this alone without having just, the power of a city is the convener. And I would ask and want to see us do the convening, whether that is in a work session or some other format, where we bring in some of these other partners that would be, the religious institutions, other nonprofits, other county agencies, to have a discussion and get that investigation moving forward, that discussion moving forward. I'd like to see that. I think it's only going to be good for everybody. It's going to be a more sustainable solution. I think in coming together, we'll have a lot of creative ideas and hopefully see the Build for Zero community is a national effort for cities to four steps. I'll read them real quickly. Form a team for ending homelessness. Number 2 is commit to a shared aim to end homelessness, and that's functional homelessness. They acknowledge that any sort of life event can bring someone right to homelessness. So it's not just mental health issues, it's just the system that we have. So, but it is the idea that a homeless person it'll be short, it'll be quick, and not something long lasting. So that's the goal. And 3 is to know everyone who experiences homelessness by name in real time and understand their needs. And then with those needs, make, again, in that coalition, targeted investments in long-term housing, short-term housing, a regulated tent city, whatever it would be. There's a homeless response system in place. That's why I feel it's a little premature. Not that I don't fully understand the opposite viewpoint of we need it now. I just disagree.
I don't think it's opposite of what you feel or think. I think we all have compassion. We all have concerns about the homeless. But I think we can agree that something has to be done regarding the tents that have come up in the past, and all possibilities will increase even more so this year due to Traverse City changes, etc. And I think we can do 2 things at the same time. Let's have a work session, as you have discussed. Let's have a work session, the first one being addressing homeless. If you really want that, I'm fine with that. But I think that we need to give the tools right now for our public safety officers to be able to enforce rules and regulations with the understanding that they are trying to work with them as they go. 2 guys Saturday night, they had problems down at the pavilion up the river. Saturday night, we're told to leave. There was some issues with that. As I know, were anybody issued tickets? No. So there's a compassion thing. They could have, I'm sure, given the people, because I heard that they were not very, they came down here. They used foul language here in the offices. Coming down here, one of them was very upset. They did not get a ticket, did not get written up, did not get arrested, did not get a fine. And it's obvious that we are willing to use kid gloves and that we would rather use carrots than a stick. And I think that at some point you have to have the ability to, at the last of all, step up and say, you cannot camp here. And have somebody say, you don't have an ordinance to it, so you can't tell me no. I don't want them to have to arrest people for disorderly person, evading arrest, et cetera, et cetera. I would rather they were able to work on what was the issue, and that's camping in the Bear River or in the waterfront area or other parks. I gladly support your ideas totally, that we need to address it in the community. And I think we have a great opportunity with some of these resources. Community mental health, who I've worked with for 40-some years, I'm sure should step up to the plate. We need to get Nehemiah House, some people from the board or the staff that work with it need to show up at a meeting. We need to have a meeting to discuss actions that can be taken as a group, because something better will happen than just City Petoskey's council doing it. Mr. Knopfler.
I made this comment before. I think that there's a lot of people at the board level at some of these places that I very much know that really care that should be incorporated in this work session or whatever the heck we're going to do, because it is a community-wide problem. It's not just the city of Petoskey's problem.
Ms. Demore.
So like my colleagues up here, of course, I support the idea of a task force. I think it's a great idea, could be the subject of a work session. But I agree with Mr. Nachtraub. Our top duty obligation to the public is safety. And in order for public safety to achieve that goal, they need to have tools in order to do that. So to have unhoused people in random locations is not safe, nor is it healthy for community members at large or for those unhoused persons. There needs to be a better plan than that. And these tools are a beginning place for that. With respectfully, my colleague, Mr. Shields, to say that, people will experience some discomfort. I think probably were you to speak directly with some folks like the woman referenced by Mr. Nachtraub, it's more than some discomfort for some of these encounters. Therefore, I support us moving forward with this, with an idea that we do need to address the other portion with the support of community resources. Thank you.
Other discussion. Does the public wish to weigh in on this issue?
My name is Ella Johnson. Do you want my address again?
Sure.
2083 Woods Lane, Unit 1, Petoskey. Well, I understand that public safety and sanitation are very important, that recent summers have raised concerns, especially near Bayfront Park and Bear River. This ordinance as written doesn't necessarily address those issues in a humane or effective way. It still overall criminalizes poverty and displaces the most vulnerable members in our community without offering some real solutions. It's not just about tents or parking spaces. These are about real people who live here and people who are struggling and have nowhere else to go. Finding someone who is unhoused just for sleeping outside does not make them disappear. It doesn't help them find a home. It just burdens them further with debt they cannot pay. Section E of the ordinance says violations will be with civil infractions, but a ticket does nothing when someone is just trying to survive. We don't need a citywide ban on camping. If Bayfront Park is the main concern or the Bear River recreation area, we can limit or restrict it just to those areas or other high traffic tourist areas. The city could look into creating a designated free camping zone or reduced rate camping zone where people can sleep safely and access the services they need. This could include sanitation facilities and support from outreach workers and local nonprofits. It would be far more humane and ultimately more effective than pushing people from one park to the next. This ordinance, even with the promise of resource referrals, still leads with punishment. It assumes that enforcement solves homelessness, but enforcement without support just moves the issue out of sight, not out of existence. We have a chance to lead with compassion, not criminalization. I would urge you to reconsider this ordinance as it is written and work together to find a real community-based solution that protects everyone, residents, visitors, and our outhouse neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. You are able to attend our work session that we'll be having.
Definitely work it into my schedule.
Just, you know, I think we have an opportunity to move forward. Is there anyone else on the line that wishes to speak at this time?
I don't see any hands.
Mr. Shields.
If I can just respond to my colleague, Ms. Demore, real quickly, since you brought up my name and referenced the discomfort comment, that was directed to city staff dealing with it, not to this person who experienced the confrontation and fear and all those very real emotions. I don't want to belittle that. So I just want to clarify that.
Thank you.
Yes. No further discussion. Go to City Clerk Beck for roll.
Knopfschrab,
Aye.
Demore,
Aye.
Shields,
No.
Murphy.
Yes. Motion passes 3-1. I know this is just the start of discussion, and I believe that our council, our community, our agencies have the ability to make some great improvements in this and to make the process work. Next is further discussion of possible adoption of proposed resolution providing direction on private dangerous tree removal assistance. Turn it over to City Manager Horn.
I'm going to throw the ball to Council Member Shields. He spent a lot of time putting the memo that you have in your packet together, and I know he's done a lot of research on this topic, so I'm going to turn it over to Council Member Shields.
Thanks, Manager Horn. And thank you for this opportunity to bring it back before this body. It is something, as I've been thinking about it and talking more with some of the arborists in the community foundation, the Action Agency, and then one resident reached out to me about it. It confirmed more the potential value of this to our community, not only in a direct way to a few landowners, but also as a model for other communities about how to, in a very unique situation of the ice storm, to take in and use public dollars that sometimes are restricted to very specific ways and broaden it to benefit other people in our community. And so I bring this proposal. I've tried to think through some more of the sticking points and some of the processes under respecting city staff's time commitments or lack of free time to be able to work on an additional item. I appreciate staff considering this. I tried to have a few parts of the process where city residents, volunteers could step in and help reduce some of that burden. And that is in number 3, where A through I kind of attempted to think through that process. And then in the last one, number 4, is where I put out the number, the $20,000 number with a $5,000 match for a total of $25,000, which is a number talking with the Northern Michigan Community Action Agency, who they were seeking a grant in a similar range from the Community Foundation that was countywide. So I felt that was an appropriate amount. Again, as kind of a pilot, as a kind of a small step to put out there. Won't cover everybody's needs, but will hopefully be meaningful for a few people that would meet the qualifications that were laid out here Again, the 300% federal poverty level criteria is what the Community Action Agency was using.
And what is that? Could you explain the 300% federal poverty level criteria?
Yeah, that is based off, so the federal poverty level per household size, it's 300% of that number. And in the application, which is page 47, it shows what, based off household size, what that 300% value of annual income would be. And it'd have to be, a applicant would have to be at or below that based off their household size.
Mr. Moore. Yeah, I thought you had your hand up.
Sure, I have questions. So I'm interested to know from each of my colleagues here and from the city manager, how many people have reached out to them, constituent requests for this type of assistance? I personally have not received any. I appreciate your response here from the arborist, but it was kind of general to, I think, community needs. So I'm just curious if Ward 3, Ward 2, the mayor, or the city manager have had any outreach about the need.
I have had none.
I have had none.
Yeah, I've asked staff again, and we haven't had anyone reach out to us for this assistance. Now, in fairness, folks probably have understood that the delineation is, public right of way is ours, private is private. So we really haven't done this before. So there's probably not an expectation that this would just be something that we would provide. So, but to answer the question, we haven't had anyone reach out directly.
Yeah, like early on, I had a couple, and since this, I've had one. My response to that would be just kind of what Manager Horn said, is people not even knowing that's a question they can ask. And then two is those who have the resources would just hire and get it done. And then those who are struggling, they're struggling for lots of reasons and living with this potential fear. And so, it would be helpful if they would contact us, but that may not be just something that without directly asking, putting this out there, is there a need? I wonder if that's fair.
And then a couple other concerns that I had. The plan for the funds to go directly to the awardee, I wouldn't support that. The funds should go directly to the provider. I just think funds going to an awardee would present potential for misuse or liability on the part of the city. So that was a concern I had. I was unclear why or how renters would be eligible. Typically, well, again, I guess I would just ask a scenario where it wouldn't be a property owner and a renter would be able to make a claim. That's a question.
You're right. Yeah, so to your first point, Misty Moore, I totally agree, and that might be an oversight. My intention in this procedure was that the Harbor Springs Community Foundation money would go to the city. It is, then needs to be, make sure the applicant qualifies based off the committee helping that. They direct, after approving that applicant, to have the city disperse the money to the, you're saying to the person who took the tree down versus the homeowner. I see.
Yeah, I'm referencing 3C, where you've got a provision that requires the awardee commit to using the funds for the dangerous tree described in their application. That's what I was referencing there.
Thanks for that clarification. And then, yeah, so I thought through that one as well. And in my rationale for supporting it here, again, is the pilot. There is in the application a request, although I did put it optional, to have before and after pictures. And I am okay with C. Now with regard to your second question there about, remind me.
Oh, that's okay. Just a clarification on how renters would be eligible. I mean, claims for damage to a piece of property would fall to the homeowner to resolve, not to a renter.
Yeah, that came from another constituent I was talking with who was a renter or who acknowledged their need, that renters will have in their, where they're living, some potentially dangerous trees, and the landlord who may not be as responsive as they would like, or may not be able to have, they're taking care of lots of rental units, and it becomes lower on the list, and if they could, again, their own perceived safety could take the action themselves, that is someone who's renting wanted to have that opportunity to take care of a dangerous tree. That's where that came from.
Yeah, again, I'm not the city attorney, but I don't see how a renter could make a decision to remove a tree that belongs to the person that owns the property. So that would be, again, a concern that I
have the same concern.
And in the application, the renters must provide documentation from the landlord property owner.
But why wouldn't the property owners apply for it instead of the renter?
Because they may not meet the income qualifications.
Well, but that's not fair. That's an unfair loop to allow them to use the renter's income.
I understand, but the reality of something happening
To
here,
improve their own property.
I understand.
I did want to mention too, excuse me.
Go ahead.
In addition to the Northwest Community Action Agency that is going to be working on this need, the House Bill 4328 is also including securing disaster assistance for individual residents. So just mention those as well.
And Ms. Demore, thanks for bringing that up. I'm not confident it was that bill exactly, but in talking with Community Foundation, they are looking at how to do this when more money comes available. And the idea of us taking this step forward and trying to figure this out was something they were glad that we're doing.
How much money is the Northern Michigan Community Action Agency putting towards this?
They got a $20,000 grant.
Not towards this, though.
So they haven't applied for money yet.
Oh, so so the clarification that they applied for their emergency relief funding for it's a more general assistance for the county, not specific to dangerous trees.
Not to private property.
Oh, yeah, it would be
Private
yeah.
individuals to disperse it to private,
That's
relief.
that's what it's set up for. Is only
My understanding,
Mhm.
I have a couple.
Knobtrop.
A couple comments. I kind of, the responsibility on rental property is the landlord. And if he or she doesn't see the risk, once the tenant has notified he or she of the risk, that's on him. And I think there's a lot of liability that he or she actually, and if that landlord meets the income qualifications issue, then I'm kind of okay with that. But, you know, I'm not okay with having a tenant who doesn't have the income to take care of a liability of a landlord. That's just one. Two, at the last meeting, I agreed with you. I'm worried about the safety, and since the last meeting, I've driven around an awful lot just looking at private property, and I think it's become somewhat of a less of a risk of a tree falling, of a branch that is hanging down by its thread. And I've been saying this, all over our areas. My dog could get just pierced if that tree branch fell off. or a child, or, it seems like there's more risk in terms of safety with these daggone branches that are still dangling as opposed to the trees. And then my last point is, to me, at the 300%, based on what you said the last time, the 300% of the poverty level basically covers 50% of the population in Petoskey. And that seems to me, if it's truly for the needy, property owners that don't have the income, elderly people that don't have the income, they live in their homes and I get for the income should ought to be lower threshold than half of the population of Petoskey. If you have a home and you're at 300%, my goodness, you ought to figure out a way to take the branches down and get the tree down. That's the other thing. But I am so sensitive to why you brought this up. And I really do think that the private property people, I wish there was a way that they could get some help too.
Someone else wish to speak? There being none.
Mayor, thanks. One more. Thanks, Mr. Knoptraub. I would say that seeing this as a pilot is doing something, and giving an opportunity for half the community does open opportunities for these dangerous trees. As talking with Mr. Porco from Drost, it isn't just the tree itself being taken down. This is trimming trees. This is taking branches from the
So that would qualify.
Yes, that is part of it. In the application, talks about dangerous trees, and that does not specify the only thing it says it does not include is the cleanup. So once it's on the ground, we're not reimbursing the cost for it.
So where is the language where it could possibly include branches dangling, ready to pierce somebody?
Well, let's see here.
Where is that in the ordinance or resolution?
I think it allows for some definition of the owner, and then documented by the licensed consultant or contractor to define what the dangerous tree is. So if that is their recognition that they can remove a branch, and that will remove the danger, and that would be less costly, that could count as a dangerous tree in this application. Large dead branches.
Your whole thing is the city would be participating with $5,000.
Correct.
I don't see the definition though of trees. What kind of trees are we taking down? I've got a neighbor who has 7, 8, 9 pines that was told they should all come down at $1,000 a tree. I just don't see. I don't see the fairness in how we're going to regulate, how we would regulate which 2 people out of each ward would get the money. It's just
First come, first serve. Yeah.
well,
Well, we can try this, and so the perceived, what I'm trying to understand is the perceived, what are the drawbacks? And so fairness is, I'm hearing for one. Where I'm sitting, the drawbacks are overcomable or not as big of, like, let's try it. That's why I'm asking for support for this.
Can I have just one other question, Mayor?
Please.
Does the city staff have a recommendation of support or not? Or are you neutral in terms of the burden on your own time to take care of all this stuff? Do you weigh in on that?
I appreciate Councilmember Shields' sensitivity to overburdening staff. I think he's thought this out well, and I think his intent is certainly supported from my standpoint, from the standpoint of we do have a lot of things that we're working on. It's a busy summer. I think with additional support, we certainly could make this work. We always have, and we ran into this with STRs, and anytime there's a first come, first serve, there's always, it's always a little hectic, obviously, with limited funds. Once word gets out, now it's a matter of Sarah and our front counter folks time stamping things and just making sure that everything is documented correctly. I said this last time, typically, you know, in my experience, public is public, private is private, and you don't really merge those two. However, this is a once in a lifetime event, I believe. And I think with that in mind, I think we have to evaluate any and all opportunities to assist our residents. And so I appreciate Council Member Shields' attempt to do that. I don't personally think this is going to be overburdensome. It's small. It's a small amount. I will say, however, that I've not passed anything on to our city attorney. So she may say, from an accounting standpoint, you know, we have to be very careful about this. And so I'd want to get her input. So maybe if you consider it, you put that disclaimer on, because I have not vetted this with the city attorney at all at this point.
I won't vote for this until I have the city attorney look at it and say, yes, no, here's corrections that need to be, you know, I don't want to put a disclaimer of if she does or if not, because then she does partial stuff and we have to come back to us. I would say, send it to the city attorney, and if you want, come back next meeting.
I thought it's interesting that this is such a small dollar amount on city monies.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to have a lot of debate.
Yeah, it's
Even
just,
myself too.
Have to know.
it's just not it's not usual, how we do business. And again, I think this is a unique situation. So there's a lot of people that are hurting out there, a lot of, I have neighbors all around me that have concerning, branches. You know, a few of them are over my house. So, I share that concern as well, but, there is a lot of need, I believe, out there. And I think once people are aware of it, they'll likely take advantage of it. But, and we don't even know, just because if it happens that council supports this, it's still an application to the community foundation. They could say, you know, either funding, I don't know what the current funding situation looks like, but whether that's a concern, or maybe, you know, the few conversations I've had with the community foundation, they've been intrigued with our involvement. So,
When is the grant proposal?
It's ongoing.
yeah, it's revolving. So
enrollment.
I think,
Oh, so it isn't a deadline, you have to apply for this by,
no,
okay, I thought they had a 2 times a year.
no, it's open until I believe their funds are gone. So,
So, you know, it seems like if you had a brief conversation with the council, that you don't spend $5,000 to get her opinion. If it's brief and can get some support, quite frankly, this discussion has been pretty good for me. I would love to figure out a way to do it.
Ms. Demore.
I'm only going to say this, and I mean it most respectfully, as an attorney looking at this, you definitely need a lawyer to look at this process in this form.
yeah, we'll likely spend more money on attorney review than we will on anything else.
Yeah, exactly. Can I make a comment, Mayor?
But I think it's important to do that.
Let's see, he wants to say.
Ms. Walker.
Yeah, as a 12-year board member of the Northern Michigan Community Action Agency, I can tell you right now, and as an employee of Emmett County for the past 18 years, government cannot move with agility at all, and the nonprofit sector can. They've already applied for it. They've already gotten granted the money, and here we are in county government, like sitting and waiting for approval process as well for like money. We've already expended tens of thousands of dollars, just like the city of Petoskey has, in and the debris management in this county, and it's going to be ongoing for the next 3 or 4 months. And we can't apply to the Petoskey Harbor Springs Area Community Foundation fast enough because all these nonprofits are getting the money before us. And I expressed my concern to the Northern Michigan Community Action Agency directly and the development funder. And I was like, it's not fair. Honestly, like you people are waiting in the hallways with grant writers and access to these funds way before government can even respond. So I'm not surprised that it's gonna take government months upon months to even figure out how to like ask for money and provide matching dollars. And that's the reason, was because we have to like exhaust everything and look at everything under a microscope, and then we lose on the opportunity. So that's just compounded on my own frustrations with having to manage debris management in this county over the past month and a half. And not being able to access those funds with any kind of like efficiency, like now, like
Well,
yesterday.
let me ask this, if Northwest Community Action Agency, are they applying for Emmett County?
Yes, Emmett.
Why can't they apply for City of Petoskey?
They can. I mean, the funds are available and it's income-based, as all programs are through the action agency. So there's an application process. This grant that's being proposed would could potentially, if an applicant applied for these funds, these emergency funds, they could get it for a dangerous tree, a widow maker, they're called. Like hanging debris over their home or their shed or their property or whatever. That they can apply for this grant just like anybody else. But how they get the information out there will be determined.
Why don't we put our money, our $5,000 into their pot and get out of it ourselves? Because if the action committee is the council thing, is for the whole county, right?
Yeah,
Well,
it's for Charlevoix, Emmett, and I think Antrim. I think three
I'm gonna
counties.
I'm gonna say, have them do the work and do the job, and understanding that it's restricted to the residents of Petoskey.
Yeah.
And why not utilize them? They have the staff. We don't have the staff.
Yeah, they have people in waiting to fill out grant applications like at the drop of a
Let's-
dime.
Let's send it over to them. I'm fine with that. Mr. Shields.
Thanks, Mayor. I would push back a little bit on the contention that government can't move quick or can't respond. And this isn't, I think this process is okay. And you know, I totally understand your frustrations. Yes, when I talked to the Community Action Agency, I didn't ask them directly if they would take on this. I asked them if they could help with the administration, and they said potentially for a fee for service. So the question of whether they do this request wasn't brought to them. But again, they wouldn't be serving just the city of Petoskey. We have an opportunity to serve our residents and provide a pool of funding for city of Petoskey residents that's not going to be diluted to the whole county, which often, we could ask them if they want to do it for just the city. I didn't ask that question.
But we also, like for the Northern Lakes Economic Alliance, we put in money into the pot that is spent around the whole county, not just Petoskey. And let's put our money into the pot and say, garnish more money and service us as well.
I will have a discussion with the city attorney, have her kind of review kind of what you all have looked at and get her feedback, and obviously pass that on to you. I understand Councilmember Shields, likely if we do use Northwest Michigan Community Action Agency, likely the need is going to be greater out in the rural areas than maybe here in the city. So maybe our residents wouldn't be able to take advantage of that versus us doing it ourselves, but.
Unless it was earmarked.
Yeah.
Mayor, I mean, that would be not my desire, and I would be definitely an option lower, but I'm happy to propose that question to the action agency.
Should you do the contact, or should city manager contact the action agency, Northern Michigan Action Agency community?
It would just be fact finding. That would be all, but.
City manager, how do you feel, want to work it?
Either one. I can reach out as well. It's not that, just a phone call, so I'm happy to call. And we did the same thing when the Chill Grant opportunity came up. Unfortunately, they were just overwhelmed with other grants at that time, so they couldn't support us for that, but certainly I can have a conversation with them.
Other discussion or? Anybody else?
Well, I think Manager Horn might need the clarification on, this body recommending, talking with city attorney about reviewing this. I mean, that was, I guess that's a little unclear to me, whether this body is asking for that. I am, but what is this body asking?
I'm a little confused on the process right now. You know, I like the idea of going to the attorney, but you know, what about the notion of some of the comments about the landlord, it's landlord's responsibility versus a tenant? Would you think that there's any, take the tenant's income out of it and just make it's the property owner? Because it's their liability and responsibility, not the tenants.
I don't think, I wouldn't support it with the renters involved. This is not their property. If somebody, that's going around and backdooring it to use somebody else's income.
Exactly. But if you've got a landlord that doesn't have the income, and there's a lot of landlords that don't, and if they otherwise would qualify,
then they should come in.
then they should come and get it.
I'm okay with that.
Anyone else? Okay. Mr. Shields.
Oh, no, I just see a hand on Zoom.
Normally we don't unless there's a motion, but I'm fine doing it this time. Please, who is it and what do they want to say?
Nikki Devitt.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello, Nikki.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I really truly champion the conversation you're having right now as council in regards to any opportunities that are out there for us to look at how we as a community and a city can help support our individual residents. As has been brought up the last couple meetings, we all know that there are bills out there right now, House Bill 4328, that has relief in it for the impacted areas, but it's really complicated, and it also looks like it would be a first come, first serve if it moves through into the Senate. And how that money would be distributed might not get down to our residents. So I applaud you looking at this as an opportunity. The only thing I wanted to give you as context is that the chamber, along with the Community Foundation and Venture North, helped pull together emergency business mini grants. And while we had a slew of calls early in the first week from the ice storm from businesses saying, oh my gosh, do we know if we're getting FEMA? I mean, this was like 4 days in, and we all know that's a very, very long process. We did not anticipate the, nearly 130 grant applications for $500 to $1,500. And, exhausted the funds in that grant program through Venture North with $60,000 in mini grants. And it was an incredible, incredible response that we received from applications from businesses. And nowhere did we have that many reaching out to us. So my context would just be that you won't know until you do it, if you do it, what the needs are, because so many of the employers that I've talked to throughout this kind of thought it was their burden to bear, whatever wasn't covered by insurance loss, or trying to manage payroll, trying to manage product loss beyond insurance. So I think that it's just a good thing that you guys are looking at it from this perspective of, is there a possibility, whether that be something you take on your own, or whether you collaborate with the Community Action Agency, because it could be one of the only opportunities for those who meet the income needs to help clean up, as you said, the dangerous trees, the widowmakers, or the hanging spear branches, whatever you want to call them, and just making our community look better. And especially for city residents, not concerning themselves with running into a blight ordinance if they're unable to afford to clean something up. So I think it's just a good thing that you're all doing, and I just wanted to applaud you for doing that because there is a lot in the background that still remains to be seen as far as funding for not just our municipalities, but our businesses and our communities from a state or federal level. So thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Ms. Deva. Anyone else wish to speak? Move on to let's see, adoption, it's new business, adoption of proposed resolution.
Sorry, Mayor, we're just gonna table this.
Yeah, oh, this thing, yeah. Aren't we tabling this? Is there somebody wants to make a motion? There is no motion. There's no motion.
I mean, can I make I guess procedure, can I make my own motion? I move to approve and adopt the resolution as described.
Do I have a second? We don't have a second, Mr. Shields, to move us forward, so you'll probably, recommendation was to have city manager talk with the city attorney on this, as well as making contact you and he making contact with the Northern Michigan Community Action Agency group for further discussion. Next is new business, the adoption of a proposed resolution that would establish property tax millage rates for 2025, and that would authorize appropriations of property tax revenues to various city funds as previously been approved as part of the city's 2025 annual budget. I turn it over to City Manager Holland.
Thank you, Mayor. So in the 2025 annual budget, we included a provision for property tax rates that would remain unchanged from 24. As we do each year, this as a formality, we ask council to formally establish the rates, the millage rates, to provide revenue, property tax revenue for the 25 budget, the general fund, the library fund, and the right-of-way fund. You can see the millages below. You can see per the Headley Amendment, the impact that has on our millage rates and how that has been rolled back over the course of several years. So you can see what we are proposing from a millage rate standpoint. Finance Director Plath has put this memo together. I know, Audrey, if you want to touch on anything in your memo or just be available for questions, but we do this on an annual basis this time of year where we formally establish the millage rates as was proposed in the budget.
Sure. So the timing of the budget does not allow us to know what the millage rates will be or the taxable value. And once we receive the report from the Emmett County Equalizations Department, which establishes the taxable value, then we can plug it into this formula along with the state inflation rate multiplier, which is a bulletin provided by the state of Michigan. And this year it was 3.1%. The previous year was 5.1%. In budgeting our tax revenues, we allowed for a 4% increase in taxable value. And it was actually, I figured 3.28, but rounded up to 4% to account for additional purchases, uncapping of property, new building and such. And that's where the 4% came from. So the city, even though there was a increase in value of 7.38%, the city cannot receive all that, unfortunately. They are capped by 5%, with the lesser of 5% or the rate of inflation, which was 3.1%. So that initiates a rate reduction. So with that rate reduction, we had budgeted the following budgeted amounts totaling 7.949. And the updated is now 7.991 million. So updated is an additional 42,000 of taxable revenue. That, however, can change based on when the tax roll comes out, July 1st. And then also any veteran exemptions, MTT cases that take place. And then throughout the year, the board, July and December board of review can, things can increase or decrease based on their decisions. So this is the projected amount.
Ms. DeMore.
What did you say that the increase in revenues was? I'm sorry.
40,000.
42,000 from the budgeted to updated.
And that's because you're capped at 5%. Right?
Normally capped at 5% growth in taxable value or the lesser, which is 3.1.
Yeah, which was the multiplier.
Correct.
So where am I going wrong on this? Because I looked at the net tax revenues from last year and subtracting that from the projected net tax revenues this year looked like an increase of $319,400.
I'm sorry, Tina, what?
I just did it I went back to this information from last year.
What would be different last year? Do you mean when we established our budget?
No, this same document, the numbers that I found, maybe you and I can talk this off book.
Okay.
But when I looked at that, that looked like the increase to me this year. Am I right in looking at this, that the millage rates, so for general operating, library, and right of way, those millage rates are all decreased from, right? And then the general solid waste is the same as last year.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Isn't that related to the budget?
Budgeted revenues.
Look at last year's actual numbers. Right?
Yeah, that's the
Yeah, so
difference
that
probably.
42 is just the adjustment to the 25 budget.
Got it. Thank you, Joe. Mr. Nactra.
Other questions? Do I have a possible motion to support?
I would support that, make a motion to support it.
If I could, just on the record line, and
Before you do that, since he made a motion, if I could have a second and then we can discuss it. What's the order?
well, I indicated to Sarah on line 2 of the resolution, it just has a typo saying the 2024 instead of the 2025 fiscal year. So I just wanted to let whoever made the motion
You can make this.
know that.
And I will modify my motion to recognize the typo.
Do I have a second?
Support.
A motion from Mr. Knobtrab, a second from Mr. Moore. Any other discussion on this? Public wish to weigh in? Can't see anything out there.
None.
I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Naktrod,
Aye.
Demore,
Aye.
Shields,
Yes.
Walker,
I vote. Yes.
Murphy.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Next is the adoption of a proposed resolution that would support the Housing North Zoning Atlas and Community Planning Project. I'll turn it over to City Manager Horn.
Thank you, Mayor. So for those that attended the Housing Summit last fall, the city of Petoskey participated. We were kind of a test study, if you will, on the zoning atlas. I provided Networks Northwest and MEDC with some data on some vacant parcels in the city. They use that data to essentially present what this zoning atlas is capable of doing. Essentially, it's a digital tool that takes a jurisdiction zoning and is able to kind of digitally, graphically show sometimes when you look at a zoning map, you see all sorts of colors, and sometimes it's difficult to determine if it's, the colors are blending together, or the colors are sometimes difficult to differentiate. What this does is it really zooms in on a zoning district. It talks about uses in that zone, what's allowable, whether ADUs are allowed in that zone, whether certain special uses are allowed in that zone. And it's valuable for developers, it's valuable for staff, it's valuable for elected officials to really quickly glance in a particular area with a click of a mouse, if you will, and really get a pretty good snapshot of what that zoning district allows someone to do. So I think it's just another tool that would be valued in our toolkit, if you will, from a planning and zoning standpoint. Housing North is seeking jurisdictional support as well as Emmett County support. Emmett County did pass a resolution of support at their last meeting to move forward with it at the county level. Housing North is seeking other jurisdictions to partner with them on this housing zoning atlas. I think it would be a nice tool to be able to add and direct developers and residents to really, again, get more zoning and planning data that is maybe easier to comprehend. It's very focused. And so that's what's in front of you, seeking the city's financial commitment of $5,000 to put this zoning atlas together, make it available for Emmett County and all jurisdictions.
I see there's a funding gap on page 66 of 38,000. And it's talking of unit government 5,000. What units are they talking of?
Yeah, so obviously Emmett County,
That's just 5,000 from them, or?
it was 5,000, yep. So
Why would they not be doing more than the city of Petoskey?
it's not my program I'm not running it, but I'm just providing the overview. So I don't know. They're obviously not using any sort of population per capita breakdown. I think they're just trying to get across the board
I understand.
ask at this point.
What other entities other than Emmett County municipalities have contributed or committed to contribute?
Emmett County is the first at this point. It's an ask that's ongoing. I talked to Yarrow. She will be making formal petitions to other jurisdictions around us, but at this point, it's Emmett County is the only jurisdiction to support at this point.
So if it's Emmett County and Petoskey, that's 10,000. So there's $28,000. Another,
Bear Creek Resort Harbor. Done.
So the question is if our request for the 5,000, if we did it, is it kind of contingent that they get all the money? Or are we just doing it, and if they don't get all the money, what happens? Because what it sounds like, it's really cool. This looks like it'd be a very cool tool for development.
Yeah,
really cool.
It
tool.
is, yep.
But what happens if they don't get their gap filled?
Yeah, that's something I can't answer at this point. Obviously, I can have them be available at our next meeting to maybe answer that more directly. But I think they continue to seek, maybe private grants and donations potentially.
Can we be
I
the
don't-
last money in?
I'm sorry?
Can we be the last money in once they get it? I mean, it seems like a good idea, but what if they don't, I guess the question is, what if they don't get it? And if our money.
I mean, yeah,
if our money.
Well,
A lot of money.
Yeah,
and what percentage should we be responsible for when you don't know how many players are on the field? I have some other concerns as well, so I just like to put those on the record. I don't know if we're moving forward this evening or not, but based on my experience, the best source of understanding of and compliance with Petoskey zoning and other ordinance requires referencing that language directly, not an extrapolation. Citizen reliance on a tool other than our ordinance language could lead to confusion, errors, and associated negative impacts, and creates another layer, to my mind, that just isn't necessary. Further, as we all know at the table, we have a process currently underway to revisit our zoning ordinances that will continue to employ community outreach and engagement. Again, I'd suggest that the proposed communication engagement process here is duplicitous and creates another layer of outreach that we really don't need. And finally, I respectfully disagree with the premise in the content provided on page 65 of our packet that the use of this tool is key to, quote, development of thousands of housing units over the next 5 years, end of quote, that, quote, meets the needs of incomes below 120% AMI, end of quote. Respectfully, without this tool, I suggest that there would be plenty of developer and city interest in providing housing tailored to the evidence-based community need of 0 to 80% average median income if funding to incentivize that targeted type of development existed. For my part, I'm going to continue to seek and support efforts to identify the funding required to deliver the 0 to 80% AMI housing that data has demonstrated we need. Those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Mr. Shields.
Thanks, Mayor. When I saw this presentation on the zoning atlas for the one in Kent County at the Housing Summit that Manager Horn mentioned, I was very impressed. I saw the great potential this has for numerous ways of benefiting our community in planning, in planning from the municipal side, from the private side, from the nonprofit side, from the developer side. I think it has a lot of upsides. And the confusion for zoning, I think there's a greater confusion with the current system, with people not knowing what zoning is. And so this is an awesome tool for education, for collaboration, and for convening more people to come together to do more than what a single entity can do it by themselves. That is potentially their statement for why the multiple homes, or this will lead to a increase in housing development. I think there are some questions. The contingent question, the funding question is valid. So I would make a motion to table this right now until we can get some of these answered from Housing North about what happens if they're not funded and who else they're asking funding for and how we can support something actually happening.
Ms. Walker.
Thanks, Mayor. So how this works with nonprofit organizations and specifically with Housing North and all of their other initiatives. So they go to the county first because it's an order of how meetings happen. So they're gonna go to the county first based on their meeting of the whole last week and their full council meeting, their full chamber meeting, which would be on Thursday. It was Thursday of last week, and then the Monday was the meeting of the whole. So I'm guessing that Yarrow went there first because of the order of meetings. She'll then go to Resort Township, Bear Creek Township, Little Traverse Township, and the city of Harbor Springs to leverage the money to get the $28,000. And whether or not those townships will put in their 5,000. I mean, they've done these fundraising efforts before. I can think about other studies that we had to contribute to as well. And sometimes we do stand alone and others don't give the money, but I would guess that that's how they'll go about soliciting the rest of the gap funding. And so the project will continue on regardless of who gives the money or not, because they'll find a way to make it happen. And once again, like they have the ability, this is like Housing North is like a people-powered entity, and we're government. And I even know, like, we were given the zoning toolkit from Housing North at the housing conference 3 years ago. And that is a template that we should be utilizing. And the process for rezoning in our own city is like molasses. and it's unable to move with any kind of agility, and it gets lost in the process, and then the people don't participate and they don't show up at meetings. But Housing North has the ability to mobilize people and capital in a way that government can't.
You said that if they don't get the funding from these people, they're gonna find the funding and do it anyway, then why should we fund it if they're gonna find it without us having it?
Well, I think it's showing good faith effort in our partnership with Housing North, which we've been in a good part, just like we're in a partnership with Northern Lake Economics Alliance at $5,000 a year, and the county gives their $20,000 or $80,000 a year. I mean, whatever those contributions are. I mean, I think that Housing North is a legitimate organization, and they're,
Are we not giving money to housing?
yeah, we are giving money, but I just,
We are giving $10,000 a year to Housing North.
but this whole thing with our own zoning reprocess has just gotten diluted to be meaningless. Like, we aren't seeing,
If I was on the planning commission, I'd find that as an insult.
well, you know what?
These
I
people show up to meetings, they show up to
absolutely, no, I'm not doubting the amount of work that's done internally on the planning commission. But where the rubber hits the road is that the zoning ordinances get lost in being a meaningless and watered down process. Whereas I think Housing North has a toolkit and they're able to mobilize on a larger geographic scale. I do support them. I think they're a great organization. And I know that how you contribute local, and you want local matches and you want to show effort. And I think that that's a good way to support them. But you don't say like, oh, we're just going to wait for Resort Township or West Traverse Township to contribute as the wealthiest township in the entire county, but never gonna see anything from them. So yeah, I just think that they will fundraise and they will get the money done, and it would be good to contribute the $5,000 that's being asked of us. And I just think, I know that they will fundraise it and they will make it happen. And it's good to
But
show
when you
good faith.
say that, it means if we don't vote on it, it's gonna happen, so we'll just enjoy the process without having to pay for it.
I think we pay our fair share is what we should be doing. Leaders lead. We need to take that step and make that commitment personally. I think that shows that, we are the county seat here. We're gonna lead, we're gonna invest in this because we believe it's gonna be valuable.
It
I
seems to
saw
me,
value in this, but one problem I have with it is it's going to create all of these housing units. I don't believe that there is a correlation between I think this is a great zoning atlas, is great for the future for the city. It is. But I disagree with the thing that it's going to create new housing here. Because we are in the process right now of reviewing housing and where we're at with it through the planning commission. We have their toolkit. We've utilized their toolkit.
I mean, Mayor.
Please.
And I think that they're addressing like things in real time. And I think it's just a good thing to support, because you want to be with the organizations that are showing the effort and are mobilizing people and capital in a way that, I mean, we want to be part of that. I agree with Shane that we want to show that leadership. And so the county did already. They put in their 5,000, and now it'll be up to Yarrow and her crew to go around and ask for all the local municipal governments that have participated in the past in this effort. And I can guarantee that Bear Creek will be asked soon, and Resort. And those are two of our most, densely populated. First of all, Bear Creek Township, and then Resort is also one of the wealthier townships that we have in our community. And I'm sure Harbor Springs will be asked as well, and then Little Traverse Township. So there you go. They've done their fundraising and identifying 5 townships and cities.
I have a clarification. Are you speaking on behalf of them that you know? Because I'm trying to understand the gap issue, but you're saying it like you absolutely are part of it and you're representing that.
Well,
that
our
there
part,
are- well,
we're all
let
part
me
of.
just finish
yeah.
my question. Because for me, I thought that the issue was what happens if they don't get the rest of the funding? and you're making it very definitive. And if that's true, then I'd like to hear is that, what if they don't get the rest of it? What happens? If you're saying that as that, you're representing that, or you think that, or, 'cause I don't know where you work. I don't get all the stuff you do.
No, it's okay. No, I'm not a board member of the Housing North, but I've been a housing organizer in my previous incarnation. So
The
yes,
Opinion is that they're gonna figure out a way to do it. You don't.
because they always do. Because when you apply for a grant of this nature and you're leveraging like MISTA funds or MEDC funds, and then you also have to you have to go out to your neighbor, to your constituents, or your surrounding community that you're working in and get the money as well from those townships and municipalities. That's pretty common. And I have no doubts that they'll be able to fundraise it.
Yeah, I had another question as well. I was just wondering, because on page 66, both the community foundation grant and the private foundation money that add up to $68,000, both say that they're pending. Do we have an update that funding is confirmed?
No, and I would just say, we're not writing a check tomorrow. Only thing this would do if we move forward is we're showing a commitment to partner, to collaborate on this project. We're not writing any checks until we know it's a go. So I think that's something to keep in mind.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, we're not writing any checks until we know if the project is viable.
So is that the motion, or are we even asking about a motion at this point?
Well, I'd like to show the commitment to proceed. If you want to amend the resolution to what I just said, that's fine.
Mr. Shields.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll amend my resolution to proceed, showing that we're willing to support this up to $5,000, and understanding that there's a lot of pending funders coming here, and that we'll hear some feedback from Housing North on the process as it continues, as they talk to some of the other potential funders in the county. No.
I'm trying to figure out a way to second this, but I want to understand from what you said, from what Shane said, is the resolution that we are willing to support it to up to $5,000 if the program is a go.
Pending funds are secured to make the project viable, something to that effect.
If the motion is something like that,
Let me
then
try again.
I would second that.
Okay, let me try again. I moved that we support Housing North in this initiative up to $5,000 pending that the program is secured and will happen. Program funding is secured and will happen.
I would second that.
Other discussion? Public wish to weigh in? Nothing?
No.
I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Shields,
Yes.
Knocktron,
Aye.
Walker,
Yes.
Moore,
Nay.
Murphy.
Yes. Next on the agenda, adoption of a proposed resolution that would support House Bill 4328 concerning emergency storm disaster relief for northern Michigan. Turn over to City Manager Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. The reason we amended the agenda in the packet, we did receive this request from Representative Fairburn's office after the packet was sent out. I think it was important enough to include this in your packet. So we went ahead and sent it out, amended the agenda. Obviously, this is the resolution is from Representative Fairburn's office. I think a little bit of it's not really a frustration, but to me, this I certainly support, and appreciate the concern and the funds that may be directed up our way. This has been such a, large event. Kind of the fact that we have to send a resolution of support for is a little frustrating, to be honest with you, but, people, our legislators obviously are well aware of the challenges that we've faced and the conditions that we work under because of this event. It's almost like we're begging for our supper, if you will, a little bit, but certainly I value, the process. I certainly value the consideration in Lansing for, kind of stepping in and assisting us with it in this time of need. And certainly, I would encourage you to, support this so we can get it, into our legislators' hands and hopefully, move this funding forward.
So moved.
I have a second. Ms. Walker,
I'll second the motion, and I have a question, Mayor.
now discussion.
Thank you, if I may. So from what I understand, House Bill 4328 has already passed the House, 107-1. Why aren't we seeing a Senate bill and supporting a Senate bill? Because that's where the rubber will hit the road, and politically, that's where the biggest challenge is gonna be. So I haven't heard anything from, like, on the Senate side of things. Does anybody know if there is a Senate bill yet?
Well, the last paragraph of this resolution is just, maybe you saw that, urging the
Urges.
Michigan Senate to pass the identical House Bill
Right.
4328. That's,
Yeah, I didn't know if it had a number attached to it yet, or if there's any like schedule for that to go to the Senate. Have we heard from John DeMoose at all? I don't.
I
okay.
think that Councilmember Demore is correct in that the House is urging the Senate to take this on and urging support in kind of what the House has already done. So it kind of is a support letter to move that forward into the Senate.
For both bodies.
I think the House has already done it.
Yeah, right.
So
That's
it's
what I'm
moving
saying.
it, urging the Senate to do the same.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Any other discussion? I go to respect for roll.
Demore,
aye.
Walker,
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Nachtrab,
Aye.
Murphy.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Next on the agenda is the council comments. I'll start with Mr. Shields, Ward 2.
Thanks, Mayor. My comment is related to the zoning reform work that the planning commission is diligently working on. And, you know, my desire, I've shared in the past, you know, frustrations with the timing of this. And it's not a question of whether they're working hard or not. It's a question of how much time we are allowing them to discuss the various points versus wanting to see things brought to this body. So I encourage, you know, with light of the homelessness issues, there's so many things that are tied to housing here in our community that I continue to think that zoning reform is crucial for not only housing units, but ultimately housing units at different price ranges. So just encourage the planning commission to bring us, you know, keep working diligently, try to speed the process up. I appreciate Manager Horn sending around information about the disparity in housing types that are available. A lot of single-family homes, the majority of homes built are single-family homes. And I'm going to try to, I'm from memory the statistics, but I have that. I think I'll just leave it as there are single-family homes being built, but the majority of people looking for homes are single or two people in the household. So they don't need single-family homes. There's a missing gap there. Our zoning changes are a part of addressing that gap. Thank you.
Ms. Walker, Ward 4.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry to my community. I had to attend an event tonight. My son is graduating from Petoskey High School, so there's a nice ceremony for the kids there this evening. And so thank you for covering all the bases in my absence. I too think about housing often in the context of my community where I live in Petoskey, but also in Ward 4. When I look at the Bridge Street, which has been invested in most heavily in the past 2 years by the city of Petoskey, including the undergrounding of all the utilities and the repaving of that street and being a major thoroughfare. I also see on that street a lot of empty and abandoned houses, one of them being what is supposed to be North Country Community Mental Health, like transitional housing. That house has been empty for the past 2 years. I see new construction on that street from Northern Homes CDC. I see empty homes sitting vacant. People can't buy them or won't buy them or can't figure out a financial way to buy a $250,000 house on Bridge Street. I see a lot of renovations happening in our neighborhood. And I'm delighted to also live in the neighborhood where Lofts at Lumber Square is coming to fruition right before our very eyes. And Michigan Maple Block, you see a freestanding structure there now. And so I see a lot of movement, but also we suffer from a lot of things like blight and vacancies and abandoned buildings and people that refuse to pay on their back taxes and sit with empty vacant buildings and refuse to occupy them or sell them or do anything with them. So it's living in this very intense like juxtaposition of development and blight and vacancies all in one. And that's a really hard dichotomy to kind of be in the middle of, but at the same time, I just kind of have to break it down by like, everybody is doing the best that they can with the resources that they have. That includes our lowest income and most vulnerable residents. I have numerous family members that are below 60% of the area median income, and it's a struggle. And I can tell you, we experience that and feel that every day. So when you're talking about those people, you're talking about my people. And I have a variety of experiences from wealth and inheritance all the way down to the lowest and low income people in our community. So we live with that juxtaposition, and I know that trudging forward, we are doing the best that we can with the resources that we have, but I just want us to remember that we live in an area that has all of that in the same neighborhood almost. So just a moment of thoughtfulness around that. Thank you.
Ward 3, Mr. Knobloch.
I look forward to a task force. I look forward to a work session on this subject. I too see the need, not quite as you. I live in Bay Harbor. We don't have that same neighborhood of people at that level, but I empathize with it. I'm very much into construction. I've done a lot of renovation of residential units in blighted areas in Toledo, and there is a need, and government has to participate in it. There's a stark difference between the state of Ohio's attitude on renovating residential units than the state of Michigan. It's a stark difference. And I look forward to trying to work with you guys on that.
Ward 1, Ms. Demore.
I would just echo that I think a great work session beginning would be a policy on vacancies, et cetera. I think that would be a great place to start. Thank you.
I had the opportunity after I got contacted by the board chair of the Nehemiah House and met with her for a couple hours to discuss what the city can do in working with them. I believe that they could be an important part in this process of taking a look at how do we address it. There is no one answer is going to take care of all of this. It's multi-workings of groups and agencies working together. The Arts Commission is moving forward slowly but surely, and the dog park is moving forward. We had a meeting last week, just to give you an update. We're looking at possibly moving the dog park rather than where the pavilion is, just south of the pavilion as you go under the Mitchell Street or the Bridge Street Bridge, walking up, you pass the Monarch little way station that Mrs. Walker was so involved with, not this Walker, but her mother. There's a large area that we took a look at, and it looks like that's probably where we're headed. Would you say, Shane? That's probably our.
Yeah, we'll have another meeting in a few weeks and then, and come back to city council.
It'll go to the
Parks
Parks and Rec and then the city council. It may stop at the planning commission too, because I heard that they felt that they should be included in some of this as well. So moving forward on all of that, you know, none of us are gonna agree on everything, but we can find common ground that makes Petoskey a better place to live for everyone, not just those that have, but those that have not, and everything in between. So go out, enjoy tonight's last hurrah of sunlight, and I call this meeting adjourned until next week.
Thank you.
You too.